Hello everyone, my name is Chelsea and welcome back to episode 5 of Bewitched by Buffy. Welcome back to Bewitched by Buffy, where we're going to be reading all of the Angel and Buffy comics I can get my hands on. This is going to be a multiple week project because there are so many Buffy comics out, including the Canon comics, the Boom Studios reboot, and there's new comics supposedly coming out from Dynamite. Every Tuesday, a new episode will be released of the comics we were able to read that weekend. This will be spoiler-filled, so please keep that in mind, but I hope you enjoy the ride. We are officially into the canon Buffy seasons. So basically, in case you weren't aware, which if you're watching this, you probably are, Buffy as a TV show had 7 seasons. After the finale for the TV show, obviously Angel was still running and everything like that, but we do technically have a continuation of the TV show through comics. So these are going to be through Dark Horse Comics, which we started reading last weekend, and this is going to be season 8 of Buffy. I have 8 volumes here that we are going to be reading. We are not going to be reading them all in this video because that is a lot. And if you've been watching any of the videos that I've made for this recently, we have 4 other episodes of Bewitched by Buffy where we were reading the Angel After the Fall comics, which is considered season 6 of Angel, like canon season 6 of Angel, plus some extra comics through IDW. And last week we started all the Dark Horse comics, but with like some of the extras for that. Things that you're supposed to read going into Buffy season 8. But like I said, if you've watched any of those videos, I have been talking a lot. A lot of the things that we were reading, I have not read before. I have read all of Buffy season 8, plus some other season things, but I've never actually fully finished the canon seasons, which is part of the reason we're doing this. I don't know exactly how much I'm going to be talking today because I have read these ones, but all of these videos are spoiler filled because that's the only way we can really do it. So we are going to be reading, I want to say we're going to be trying to read half of season 8 in this video. So 4 volumes. We will be reading volume 1, The Long Way Home, volume 2, No Future for You, volume 3, Wolves at the Gate, and volume 4, Time of Your Life. That I think is our plan for this video. And so I guess without further ado, we're gonna be starting with volume 1, The Long Way Home. This, as you can tell, is written and everything by Joss Whedon. We will have some other authors and things as we continue throughout the series. It's not 100% just him, although I think because it is considered canon, it is sort of what he intended for the series. I don't know how much changed between going from a TV show to comics, but I love that we have like our big 3 characters here on the front. Let's jump into it. Okay, we barely started into The Long Way Home. But basically, it's Buffy's talking. She's just introducing the fact that the world has changed. And it's because after season 7, or at the very end of season 7, there is no longer one Slayer in all the world. They activated all of the potential Slayers in the entire world. And so she mentions that there are like 1,800 now. And they have about 500 working with us in 10 separate squads. And at one point they literally like full on show, like it's almost like spy movie-esque type of thing. There's a helicopter, they're jumping out of the helicopter. I really love the art style. This is the thing that I recognize, obviously, because I have read season 8 before. And I like how stylized it is, but at the same time you can definitely tell what the characters, like who they're supposed to be. But yeah, they're on some sort of mission. That's as far as I got. But I liked the fact that they did tell us there's like 1,800 active Slayers right now. Oh, she said there's even 3 of me. So apparently there's like 3 different Buffys out there. I'm pretty sure they tell us and why, but I did not remember that, and that is intriguing. Sorry. Okay, sorry. I'm still on like the same page. Well, it's like a big spread. They mention the 1,800 Slayers here, they mention that there's 3 of her here, and then they're like into the thing, and Buffy says, the guys figured I was a target, set up 2 other Slayers to be me. One's underground, literally, One's in Rome, partying very publicly and supposedly dating some guy called the Immortal. That's the Buffy that Angel and Spike were trying to find in Rome in Angel season 5. So I'm assuming this is around that time period. Like, this is potentially set around that time. Season 5, maybe season 6. All that stuff that happened in Angel after the fall really only happened in LA, and none of these people are like there, so I don't know how much of that we'll get into here. And I never read Angel After the Fall previously, like when I first read Buffy season 8. So I am curious, now that I know that sort of information, what we're gonna have in here. But that just tickled me a little bit. The fact that like the only Buffy that we've sort of seen since the end of Buffy season 7 isn't actually even Buffy, but Angel and Spike never really got to see her either, so like there's no way that they could know. But I love the fact that they're mentioning it in here. That part was Andrew's idea. He did research on the guy, said it would be hilarious for some reason. Just, you know, some reason. I love how like science-y it seems now. They have all these like computers and people. She mentioned that she still has her watcher, but it looks like it's pretty much Xander potentially being her watcher. Like, he's literally watching on computers, and you know, as soon as Rowena's placed, we're good to go. Like, just, they have a production here. Okay, so we just got into like the nest of whatever is in here that Buffy and her current gang was going after. Like, they're like creepy demon lizard things. And she literally like uses a crucifix or a cross to like stab the monster guy. And then they realize that there's like dead people, like victims of these monsters, and on the guy's chest. And I'm showing this because I know we are eventually gonna get to it, because like this is one of those things that is gonna be running throughout the whole of season 8. And like on the very front, before you get to like the actual pictures, they have all the credits and things, copyright. It's this thing on the guy's chest. And they mention it's not new. It looks potentially self-inflicted. And so just keep it in mind. We're gonna need it. I don't know 100% all the little tiny details, since it's been years since I last read these, but I know it's gonna come up again. Okay, again, sorry. So they finished their little thing, and then we have a cut to these like military guys on a helicopter. And there's this guy talking to a general, the General Vole, and it says, "Our intel says they're too loosely affiliated to be an army." And he's like, "Well, they have squads. Terrorists call them cells. And if we go ahead with this, we have to be together on exactly what we're facing. We are facing an army." The general is like, "We are facing an army. They got power, they got resources, and they got a hardline ideology that does not jibe with American interests. Worst of all, they have a leader. Charismatic, uncompromising, and completely destructive. I mean, for the love of God, look what she did to her hometown." That's what Sunnydale looks like now after the end of season 7. So they are definitely thinking, I guess armies are gonna be opposing slayers. Okay, they have some guy down in the crater, and he's trying to find something. They want him to pick up traces of something, and he's like, "No, it's basically a museum down here. No bodies, no mystical readings." He's all alone, except for there is obviously some sort of thing in his visor and screaming. So there's potentially something down in the crater of what used to be Sunnydale. Okay, and we're on to the one of the interesting things that happens during season 8. Dawn is giant. Apparently she was dating a boy who is a thrice-wise. I don't particularly know what that means, but they mention it a few times in here. And because of that, she is now giant. They both mentioned that they're currently in Scotland, which is something we haven't really known exactly where they are before. And she's supposed to be going to school at Berkeley, but obviously she's huge, which makes that hard to do. Okay, I think I remember a reveal that's gonna happen. Let me get there and I'll show you. The science-y guys, the military, I think they've taken whatever was down in the crater of Sunnydale and put it somewhere, and we're gonna get to that in a second. Okay, so part of the reveal, they have 2 people apparently from the crater of Sunnydale in their like white lab area. And they keep talking about different things to like give you little hints about what's going on. So basically, I guess the girl was the person that came up to the other guy that screamed. And he said, I guess, after he got over his girly screaming fit, he told us her first words, and they were, "I'm gonna help you kill her." Okay, very intriguing. And then she wants access to all of their magical hardware and a weapons lab for her boyfriend. Boyfriend is in quotes. They also want to be released and have full immunity if they succeed in taking down Buffy Summers. She also wants a lot of cheese. And they're like, what is her name? Her name is Amy. Amy's back, and then there's our little symbol again. They were also speculating on what the symbol was. Xander said he thinks it's a frown turned upside down and then turned upside down again. Buffy said she thinks it's like a sunrise. So, just in that, okay, we're on the Long Way Home Part 2. So this is issue number 2 now. Oh, looks like we're following Giles and what he's currently doing, because it starts off with, "I used to be a watcher." He says that there used to be hundreds of watchers and one slayer, and the scales have tipped of late. It's basically like him surrounded by a bunch of, I'm assuming slayers, a bunch of girls. Okay, apparently we're showing different ways of training the slayers. We started with Giles basically talking to them, and they're going crazy in here. I showed you the picture. And he's talking about how they're not necessarily using stuff to their strengths because they're fighting against each other. They're not working together to learn to fight as one. And so he was like, your most valuable asset is each other. And it switches to Buffy saying each other. And she's talking about how the more slayers you have, the more you're able to work together, the more formidable you will be. And she has 3 of the slayers that were with her earlier. We have Leah, who has red hair, I'm pretty sure, Satsu, and Rowena, who is blonde and I think speaks with an accent as well. And she said, "Would you 3 please kick my ass?" And they try to. She takes them down. And then she said the first clue that this was clearly going downhill is, and it switches to Andrew talking about Lando Calrissian. So, I mean, obviously they have their differences on how to train. Andrew's group's in like a circle having story time. They're talking about Star Wars. I mean, he's speaking too much about Star Wars, and he's like, "So does that answer your question?" And they're like, "No." They wanted to know about weapons. Yeah, that did not happen. And they were asking, why do we have to use medieval junk? We could totally get some guns, do some real damage. We're fighting demons here. And he said, "You didn't listen to a word I said, did you?" They said, "About Lando Calrissian?" He said, "No. No Slayer ever carries a gun." End of talk. Good talk. Okay, we're back with the army people. They're really debating if they should be working with Amy or not. But one of them was like, "I think we should do it." And they said, "Well, if she blows it, are we supposed to send in the monstrosity that she calls a boyfriend next?" And he's like, "Yeah, that thing is really gross." I'll show you when we get there, but it's funny. But it looks like our general also has a symbol on his chest. So maybe that's partly the reason he doesn't like Buffy, more than the fact that like she blew up Sunnydale, because it wasn't her fault, obviously, but like, yeah. Okay. Okay, very, very interesting. So we jump to Buffy and Xander talking about Dawn and about how she's a giant and how he was having a conversation with her earlier and thinks maybe it was somehow unintentional, but like a manifestation of her feeling unseen in the first place. And so now she's a giant, and Buffy's like, "Oh, great, it's all my fault because, you know, she moved in with slayers and like she has to take care of other people and not just Dawn." And then they get to this like dream sequence, obviously, but like she starts to be like, "Should we go to bed together?" and things. And I'm like, excuse me, what is happening here? But then like his head pops off and things happen from there. Like it's obviously some weird crazy dream sequence. And it looks like it's because of Amy. And then like Xander and stuff does show up, but I was just like so confused for a second because like I don't remember a Buffy Xander thing going on. There is so much stuff going on. Like I said, I feel like I'm going to be talking forever again, so we'll see how much stuff we get through reading. But so obviously Xander and people are getting hold of Amy. Amy tries to stab Buffy with a dagger. The dagger like splits. And Xander is like, this is the crappiest sacrificial dagger I've ever seen. But I guess it's because Buffy has protections around her even when she's sleeping, like mystical protections. They're like, we would never leave her vulnerable. Like, are you stupid? But then Amy's saying, don't you notice that she's still asleep? She's living a nightmare right now. And the only thing that can wake her up is the kiss of true love. And Xander's like, seriously? Then we cut to some slayers out here doing midnight patrol on the wall. One of them is somebody that was flirting with Xander a little bit. Somebody else is like, are you sure your interest in comics and geeky stuff right now is just because you wanted to and not because you're trying to flirt? But they hear clawing on the walls, and it looks like zombies are climbing the walls right now. So lots of stuff is happening. Okay, so Xander was saying, so this doesn't have to be someone she's in love with, and Amy said no, just someone truly in love with her. I guess that's a little bit better, but not friend love. No, someone who wants to kiss her, like they're passionate about her, and not a sister. Well, a twisted sister, like they're just going back and forth. Okay, so we're now jumping in between zombie fighting and Buffy's nightmare, and this definitely looks like Spike to me, right? I mean, obviously, it's part of her nightmare. Who knows? And then Willow shows up. Basically, Amy was like, there's nobody here who's strong enough to test me. And Willow's like, I would like to test that theory. Pretty sure. Nice. Okay, that was the end of issue 2. Let's move into issue 3. Yeah, that definitely seems like Spike to me. Okay, let's do this. Oh no, she said, and then I threw up in my mouth a little. It's Ethan Rayne. Crazy. Who would have thought? She said, you're a chaos-worshipping wannabe sorcerer who takes up none, count it, none of my subconscious, which means you forced your way into my dream. I love that she is in this space knowing it's a dream and knowing that if he somehow made it in there, there is no way she was dreaming about him at all. He said it's her dream space. He said, in brief, you are always dreaming every dream you could dream all the time. Even when you're awake, a part of your brain is stirring that brew. Interesting. Which one you choose to remember in the morning is based on wishes, anxieties. In your case, your collective Slayer memory and prophecies are mixed in as well. That is a very interesting concept. So, do you want to see one? This is for all the people that want a little romance in there. It's obviously Angel and Spike. She said, that's not worth noting. Oh, and we also get some good Amy and Willow fight. Okay. Amy's was sort of gloating with Willow, saying that your magic is so weak now. Like, how come you were almost able to destroy Sunnydale one time? And Willow said, I saw the big picture. And Amy, you're as self-involved as your mom was. You think I'm fighting you, but I'm absorbing your mojo so I can decode it. And she was able to do something to the zombies. So now all the zombies are saying, may I have this dance? Instead of actually fighting the Slayers. Okay, Ethan Rayne is apparently trying to help her get out because he needs her to escape her dream space to get out and do stuff. And he said that when you take over somebody's dream space, you can actually interfere with it, but it means you have to attach a little bit of your own. So he's here for a memory. Apparently there's a memory they need maybe to get out. Oh, Dawn just like squished Amy. I don't think she's actually like dead or hurt or anything, but like, okay, no, they got her captured. Dawn asked if Willow was evil again because her hair went black at one point, and she said, no, she just really pissed me off. Okay, Buffy and Ethan are going through dream stuff, which I guess is Amy's dream stuff, because he says they've gone too far back, and we can see Amy's spinning wheel from when she was a rat. And there's like weird stuff going on. At one point, there's like 3 X's, 3 X's, triple X. Buffy says, so it's either Vin Diesel or porn, neither of which is really attractive. And then Ethan Rayne says, Twilight is falling, and you're going to need all the help that you can get. We just need to keep that in mind because the Twilight is falling thing shows up a little bit. It goes with the symbol. Again, I don't 100% remember everything, but keep it in mind. Okay, so I think they're all done fighting everything. They have Buffy laying in bed. She almost looks like Snow White to me, like when she's in the coffin thing, because this is a true love spell, is what Willow was saying. And so Xander says, how do we deal with this? And Willow says Buffy needs to be kissed by someone who is in love with her, and someone in this room is. They might not even have realized it, and they probably don't want anyone to know about it. Everybody's gonna shut their eyes and keep them shut if they want to keep them. And that person will step forward and give Buffy a kiss. Okay? And then Buffy says, I have a funny feeling on my mouth. And then she wakes up and yells, cinnamon buns. And then she says, I just had the weirdest, oh, Will. Okay, she's here. And then that's it there. It looks like we jump to Giles with, is this another of those like creepy monster guys from the very beginning? Potentially, but he says they were lured out there and they're not happy about it. They said the symbol on those men that were there are meaningless to them. And they're not convinced it's a Slayer. It's not a Slayer trick. Okay. They think Amy's attack and the symbol are linked. It looks like Giles is trying to get information. Andrew, I think, is maybe talking to Xander through an earpiece. They're all just sort of like, I think these are like the main watchers of the Slayers now. They're trying to get everybody up to speed. Okay. We're also now back with Willow and Amy and all them. They have her sort of magically tied up somewhere so they can deal with her. Willow's trying to trace her because she thinks based on some of the magic that she's done, she's not working alone. And Buffy's like, speaking of, where the hell have you been? We don't know much about all this kind of stuff going on except for potentially what we've read in like some of the Angel comics and things. So we haven't really seen Willow much, but she says that it's been a funky time and we'll get into it. Buffy asks how Kennedy and if they're still together, and Willow says she died. Obviously Buffy is horrified for her and she said, oh no, she's fine. Mystical thing only lasted a month. I don't remember anything about that, which is intriguing. Like, I wish we had a little bit more about that. Not that I personally like Kennedy out of all of Willow's paramours, but like, okay. Okay, Willow has a track on Amy. Apparently she was able to figure it out. She says she's pretty sure it's not the kingdom of the fairy folk, but a military installation. Oh, if the initiative is back. Yeah, we don't want that. Oh, and it's a trap. Looks like they're sucking Willow and Amy, obviously, through the portal. Yeah, Buffy tried to catch her. Did not work. So Willow has been sucked through. Buffy says, we're being played and I don't like it. And so obviously they now have Willow on a table. Amy's there to gloat, obviously. She said, of course, we're contracted to bring in the Slayer, but I'm pretty sure she'll show too late, of course. And Willow, of course, is like, we. And then we have our third person, or I guess Amy's boyfriend that everybody was talking about, says, I can't tell you how long I've waited for this. Well, I can, to the hour. Killing Buffy Summers is going to be a party. She's pissed me off more than a little. But you, Rosenberg, you really got under my skin. I think we can tell from this disgusting, creepy image, Warren's back. Yep. Bored now. Yeah. He said those were the last 2 words of his human life. He said Amy started watching Willow, and because of that, she was watching Warren. And do you know she had maybe a 4-second window after my skin came off before I died of shock alone. Her magic is his skin. I remember this. This is the reveal that I was talking about. Didn't realize it was just Amy at first, and he was later, but like, I remember this. So creepy. Oh, and he said he helped Amy come up with the spell for her and her new girlfriend. So like in the show, when Willow like first kisses Kennedy and forgets a little bit about Tara being dead, she is so guilty and everything, she turns into Warren and then has to try and find Amy to sort of help her with it. Obviously that doesn't really happen because it's Amy and stuff, but according to this, Warren helped with all that. Okay, Dawn is very upset that Willow has been taken. She really wants Buffy to like hurry up and get on it. She wishes she could do something more, but she's giant, so she can't. And she tells Buffy that Willow is like a mom to her. And Xander immediately was like, oh, I bet you loved hearing that. But they're trying to work on the portal. And then we see a little bit of like what they're trying to do to Willow. And they like have her eyeball like held open. Like, they don't get too graphic, which is good, but it's like crazy stuff. Apparently they're trying to get to some of her power. And there's like weird stuff going on. Like here. Okay, Buffy's getting her team ready to go through and get Willow, and she's taking Satsu with her, and was telling her, you know, kill any demons you see, but if there's humans, go for the wound unless they get stupid. Satsu's like, humans. And she said Willow said Amy's magic is mixed with technology, so like obviously humans, and try to fight with her and not next to her. And then Buffy wanted some lip gloss and Satsu lets her borrow some, and it's cinnamon. Okay, Willow is with that weird stuff that I was talking about. They said this is her refuge, like she can hide there with them. And then Warren is trying to lobotomize her. That's why we had the eye thing. But it's very interesting to see, like she has like these 5 people, I don't know, spirits or women or something. One looks like a tree, one looks sort of werewolf-y, very hairy, I don't really know. One looks like water, one looks like mathy paper, and then there's also one that looks very Renaissance-y or like more art style. Okay, portal is opening. Okay, we're switching to the phone thing. We've had this happen before. I talk too much, I film too much. But the portal is opened. The military guys send through some magic, but Buffy's area has like witches that sort of like reflect it back. Xander said it's done with mirrors, but they kaboom in the military thing. Whatever thing that they used, it looks like got blown up. And the general or somebody's like, stay calm, damn it. And Buffy comes through, says, no, panic. Okay, so her and Satsu are fighting. I love that Buffy still has her scythe and everything. Okay, interesting. So Willow is obviously in her area with the different mystical women. I have no idea what to call them. And they said that your body is dying and is almost dead. And if you die, you cannot come back from a natural death. And Willow said, did I ever tell you about my best friend? I like to think in a way that she's a part of me, that even when she's gone, a part of me is with her, because it is. And then Buffy's eyes go black and she's channeling green magic, which is interesting. Amy says, this is a light show. You haven't got a particle of her strength. But I think it's Buffy. She says, I saw your dream space, Amy. I saw your nightmare. It's Amy's mom. And they say now. Amy says mom. And there's like a grenade with more kabooms. Kabooms happen. Amy goes and has to take Warren back away with her. They portal somewhere else. And obviously Buffy does get to Willow in time. Looks much happier than she should have been, probably. Okay, so they're trying to get out. Willow is saying that she has enough magic to help some people because Buffy promised to not have too many people be injured. But they see this door that has the number 30, and so Buffy's like, okay, 3 X's could be the number 30, and she opens it, and I don't know if they executed him or not, but Ethan is obviously dead. He looks like he's been shot in the head. So that's interesting. And there's this guy who pulls a gun and tries to shoot Buffy, but she like disarms him or something. And she sees that he has the symbol on his chest. It must be the general. And the general says that twilight is coming for you, for all your monstrous spawn. And she said, are you talking about the girls who are protecting the world? And he says, what, evil, demons? Where do you think your power comes from? Oh, wait, you already know. You've upset the balance. Do you really think we're going to sit by and let you create a master race? And Buffy says, this isn't all about demons, is it? It's about women. It's about power and it's about women. And you just hate those 2 words in the same sentence, don't you? And he says, you're not human. You've been to war with the demons with the first, but believe me, you picked the wrong side, because God help us, if you win, then you'll decide the world still isn't the way you want it, and the demon in you will say just one thing, slay. He says that she's at war with the human race, and she says, oh, okay. Okay. My camera cooled down. It had overheated a little bit because I have it on too much and talking too much, but that means I don't have to use my phone because it looks like we're good now. But we just finished the end of The Long Way Home, and then we have The Chain. Every single issue that we had been reading in here was The Long Way Home, so I think this one is slightly different. And basically, it starts with this monster guy, demon guy. Buffy Summers is dead. I'm assuming this is the extra Buffy Summers who was underground, because we did mention that, right? And this looks cavernous. We have like stalactites and stuff on the ceiling. Oh, and it says the funny part about all this, I never even met her. Okay, so there's this girl. I don't know if it's this extra Buffy person. The Buffy person, Buffy number 3, because the other one we know is in Rome, is in the caverns, and obviously before she dies, there's this like fairy thing with her, And she's saying to Buffy, like, let's leave now. He's gonna kill you. This guy's gonna kill you. And this Buffy is saying, no, I can't leave. He's gonna bring a whole army upstairs, and this is what I was sent to stop. So you need to go upstairs and tell them that he's massing things and he's gonna be coming. And then we cut to this, like, girl in high school, and she's just talking to her friends about stupid gossipy stuff. And then she's, like, hit with something and thrown backwards. And Giles is saying, I will tell you about the chain. And we're showing, I think, the chain of slayers with this girl that was hit. She said, so it's different, I guess, for different people. Some it's a tickle they don't even know, or a rush, fun. But for me, becoming a slayer was like Mike Tyson in your face, and not punching you, Mike Tyson, ripping your ear off with his teeth, Mike Tyson. The power, the shared memories, the truth, the unbelievable truth. And then we see this, like, little TV ad, which obviously has Andrew, and it looks like Felicia Day's character basically being like, oh, I have such strength and I don't know what to do with myself. Whatever will I do? And it's like, here's a pamphlet that'll show you a support group. And then it shows the girl going to, I'm assuming, wherever it was. So maybe there is some sort of TV commercial thing that they're putting out right now. Yeah, she's saying, okay, it's not cheesy like the commercial. It's actually amazing. I couldn't put it into words. But one time a guy did pretty well. He was visiting. I guess he's pretty well known. So by extension of extension, yes, I'm famous and fabulous, but not really. You know, ironically, I'm probably even less famous because of the name. They even have another girl using it, way more high profile, doing a party scene in Rome. Okay, this girl that was in the high school thing, I think she is Buffy number 3, and she's using the name Buffy, so that's why she's saying she's probably less famous because she's not the only Buffy. One thing I love is Giles is coming to tell them about the chain, and she's just like, you've probably heard it all before. How we're all over the world and through history and make a difference, and we're all equal and do things for each other, and it isn't bullshit. He's actually really articulate, but it's just like, she just did it. You probably heard all this. And it shows them, like, fighting vampires. There's obviously more slayers. They're learning how to work together. Oh, okay, and our girl that's gonna be Buffy number 3 gets a vampire bite in the fight, and then she says, I hear Buffy's got a neck wound too. That's probably part of the reason they let her be. She just has to change her hair. Oh, and she says, why me? Did I get the hardest, darkest path to walk because I'm strong, I'm good, I can handle the heavier burden? Or am I weak, expendable, the one that won't be missed? The truth? There is no truth. There's just what you believe. And they're showing quite a bit of stuff. Different things that I guess she had to do, different caverns. There's like this, like, slug thing with the fairies that found her, and then she has to, like, talk to them. Lots of underground weird things. You passed the test. The last one to fall this far years ago gave us your language. And this pretty necklace because he didn't pass. It's his skull and spine. And then she's fighting this big demon guy. And philosophizing as she does it. She's saying that there's different names. There's always a name. Lincoln, Hitler, Gandhi. The name can inspire terror, awe, sometimes great things. But there's millions of people go into making a name. People facing things they couldn't imagine they would. In the moments that matter, even our own names are just sounds people make to tell us apart. What we are isn't that. The real questions run deeper. Can I fight? Did I help? Did I do for my sisters, my comrades, children, slimy slug clan? There is a chain between each and every one of us, and like the man said, you either feel its tug or you ignore it. I tried to feel it, I tried to face the darkness like a woman, and I don't need any more than that. You don't have to remember me. You don't even know who I am. But I do. Yeah, she was known as Buffy. We never learned her name through that entire thing. It does look like other Slayers were coming to help, but, like, we never learned her name. Okay. That was it for volume number 1, The Long Way Home. I feel like I've read this one at least once before. Maybe even twice. I'm pretty sure I tried to reread these at some point because I never finished, like, season 11 and 12. 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I love how humorous it is in times, but obviously there's a lot more going on. There was a lot of character reveals, crazy ones. Like, the concept of even just bringing Warren back is, like, crazy to me. I eat it up. I eat it up the entire time. So that is going to be it for volume 1. I will be starting volume 2 eventually. I think we're going to take a break because the more I sit on this beanbag, the lower I sink into this beanbag, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but we're going to take a break. Okay, so it is past 10 p.m. I have my tripod on my bed, wedged in between blankets and pillows, so we'll hopefully have this work without it being too wiggly. And I am drinking a full sugar caffeine Mountain Dew. Baja Blast, obviously. Because the kids are in bed, finally. Elliot has just been, I don't know, talking up a storm and everything at bedtime, like almost every single night. It takes her like an hour to fall asleep now. But we are officially going to be reading volume 2 now. So this one is called No Future for You. Peep the Buffy and Faith on the cover. Very, very excited. This one is written by Brian K. Vaughan, who is probably like one of my favorite comic writers. I am up to date on the volumes of Saga, which I absolutely love. It's huge and earth-shattering and heartbreaking and everything, and I just absolutely love it. And Paper Girls, which again, I absolutely love. That one's shorter, it's only like 6 volumes. Very sci-fi, time travel, what the heck is going on, but I love it. The thing is, I read this for the first time before I even knew those other things existed. Now, I don't know when they were published relatively to this, so this is probably something that was published first, but like, I didn't realize he wrote this until like right now when I was like picking out the books this morning, and I was like, oh, his name's on here, and like I recognize it. I'm just so excited. So obviously, moving into volume 2, which picks up right after volume 1. I don't remember much else about this, but we do obviously, you know, have the different amounts of Slayers. Amy and Warren are back. Dawn is a giant, and we are, yeah, going into No Future for You, issue 1. I love that cover with Faith and everything because it's like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but Faith. I think that's probably one of the alternate covers for this issue. So let's jump in. Okay, sorry. I'm loving how humorous some of this stuff is. And like obviously we got that with Buffy, like that's what I would expect, but that, like that's what makes me fall in love with it. So we're following Faith. And she said, "Oh, the places you'll go. Mom used to read me that book before she tucked me in. Nights she was sober enough anyway. But Dr. Seuss never tells you that even with brains in your head and feet in your shoes, you can still end up in Cleveland." I'm pretty sure they mentioned that there's like another Hellmouth in Cleveland, so that's probably why Faith is here. And Robin Wood is calling. He has her phone number, and she said, "I'm impressed. Most exes are too proud to make the late night booty call, but not you, huh?" And he said, "This is not pleasure. It is for business." Yes, lots of vampires. Looks like he's helping out with the Slayers and stuff. Here, lots of vampires right in there. Okay, and he's texting her not to help with that vampire nest. But I guess one of the vampires they just took care of was a single mom with kids, and so he's calling Faith to go take care of any vampire children at her house because he doesn't think the other younger Slayers would be able to handle it. Okay, and after that job that she did, Giles is in her apartment and says he has a job for her. And apparently this is like a dangerous job, but one that once she completes, she will be able to completely skip the country, retire to wherever she wants. And he says the job is a Slayer. Okay, apparently this Slayer is someone who all the augurs and, you know, people that can see into the future say if she's not taken out by the end of fall, she will cause the apocalypse. Faith is being a little bit flippant, and so he like is reminding her that this is not a demon you're gonna kill, it's a human. And she's like, yeah, I got it, so who is it? I mean, I guess, yeah, if you need some sort of human killed, even if it's for a good cause, you go to Faith. Okay. I'm thinking this Lady Genevieve we've just met is probably the Slayer that needs to be killed. She's very, I mean, she's called Lady, highborn, high class. She's doing horseback riding and talking about how she wants a hound in order to do fox hunting and things like that. But the fox they are hunting today is a girl. And this girl has obviously been hiding and crying. And she tries to kick her and get away. And she backhands her and breaks her neck. And she says, "Oh God, I thought you said that this one would be as strong as me. I thought she was another slayer." And this guy with her says she was. So that makes it even more impressive. Okay, this guy obviously has magic. He says that his boys will clean up after this, and they're like weird winged gargoyle-like creatures that apparently, I don't know where they've come from, but he has magic in his hands. And here is our symbol again. It's on the book that this warlock has. Oh, Giles is going to teach Faith proper etiquette, I guess, because they're showing this like big banquet hall. And he said her training is not complete. And she says, "No offense, Professor Turtleneck, but I kind of doubt there's much you can teach me about the wonderful world of wetworks." And he says, "Faith, were this a garden variety assassination, I would have used a rifle and done the deed myself." So they're expecting her to like infiltrate, apparently. Giles touches her. And I don't know if this is, it looks vampire kid-esque, who knows, but she stabbed him with a fork because of it. He's being very cool about the whole thing. He said he survived worse, and then she sees his tattoo, like the Aegon thing, and he said, "Faith, do you honestly think you're the first young person to have stumbled upon the notion of rebellion?" He said, "You and I aren't so unalike, but those of us who refuse to pay the piper during our adolescence have a responsibility to shoulder the most unpleasant costs of adulthood." And then she said, "It was a salad fork, right?" Oh, and he said, "No, that's actually not the salad fork, but it's a start." Okay, we have officially moved on to Buffy and Xander and where they're hanging out. And he's training because he has a sparring session with a different Slayer that we met in the previous volume that they've been flirting a little bit. And he's, you know, doing some like late night sparring punching things because of that. Buffy's down there though because she keeps having nightmares. And she's like, "I keep trying to figure out this Twilight thing," and she drew the symbol on like the window. And they mentioned like, "Have we heard anything from Giles?" Because he's supposed to be like looking into it, and they said no, they haven't heard from him in a little while. Obviously we know what he's doing, but her nightmare, I guess, is like she's trying to run from this thing, and it says the queen is dead, long live the queen. So intriguing. I love this. And he even says 5 by 5. One thing I will say, I'm not very far into it. I just finished No Future for You Part 1, and again, I love these like extra covers and stuff that we got. The writing is phenomenal so far, and by that I like, it's funny, but like what I really mean is like the way that the characters are speaking. So far we've mostly had Giles and Faith, and then we've had a little bit of Buffy and Xander. They sound like the characters, and I know I'm reading it, it's in my head, but like I can hear them in my head. Like the way that the words are coming out of all these different characters' mouths is what I would expect from the show, and I'm loving that. Okay, moving into part 2. Okay, issue 2 starts off with Faith and Giles getting ready for the party. It actually starts off with like the scene from season 3 where Buffy and Faith are fighting, and Faith's actually monologuing a little bit about how you meet people and you think they're friends, and then something happens, either you do it or they do it, and stuff goes wrong and they hurt you or you hurt them, and you realize you would have been better off alone. And then she's trying to go to the party, and she's like full on dressed up, has Giles in her ear, which she promptly takes out and is like, "I have too many voices in my head already." But she plays the very spoiled rich girl very well, and they let her in, and she's in the receiving line to go see Lady Genevieve, and it looks like she has like a dagger or something like in her hair that she's supposed to use. But then we cut over to Giant Dawn, so let's see what's going on with that. Okay, so Dawn is obviously a giant. Willow's trying to figure out why. They know it's probably because of the thrice wise guy that they were talking about. I still don't know exactly what that means, but they want to know like what spell he used or, you know, whatever it was. And Dawn was saying, you don't understand. He was the only guy on campus who treated me like a friend, not a walking pair of boobs. And then Willow says, oh, sweetie, don't talk like that. Boys are into you because of your legs, not those itty bitty things. Very funny. Okay, so Faith is obviously not quite ready to take out Gigi, I think is what she's going by. She is outside the party on the balcony smoking, and then Gigi literally comes out and is like, can I bum one? And they get to talking a little bit. She does start to take her dagger out, so I'm assuming she was getting ready for it, but right at that moment, Gigi's warlock, like, his gargoyles, take her up, and then there's this big old fight thing where she's like breaking them down, cracking them up, but obviously she gets a little bloodied and bruised in the process, and then she does this, and I wonder if that's actually the warlock's doing. Okay, Faith is waking up in bed, and Gigi thinks that she's still more of a highborn person and doesn't know what's going on. She literally is waking up and is like, what, where, you know, what's going on? And Gigi's like, I realize how confusing this must be for you, but you're not like other girls. You're part of a long line of very important, very powerful people. And then she's like, I'm not talking about nobility. I'm talking about an ancient force that you and I and a lot of other girls have tapped into. Oh, and she's saying she wants to destroy the woman holding us back and take her mantle as queen. Faith says, you want to kill Elizabeth? And she says, no, not Elizabeth. Okay, that was the end of part 2. We're going into part 3. And the first thing that Faith says is her. It's always about her. Okay, Faith's thinking that Giles wasn't meaning it was going to be the end of the world if she didn't kill Gigi. It was always about Buffy. She was going to be killing Buffy. Gigi does seem to be under the impression that Buffy is a leader, but like an oppressive leader. She wants to assassinate her, obviously, and she's talking about how Buffy has forced our kind to be the serfs of this world when we should have been lording over the masses. So she definitely, one, comes from highbred society stuff, but it sounds like she wants the Slayers to be more in that position as well. Okay, Giles is outside waiting for Faith still, talking in his little walkie-talkie, hoping that she can hear him. And he said that he has a freelancer to help, which is this guy, whoever this is, trying to hit stuff with a hammer, saying the hammer's not going to work. And then he said, I'm afraid your secret agent is on her own, presuming she's still active. And Giles says, don't even talk like that. There's no way she's been killed. She's made for this. And he said, no, I don't mean killed in action. The target of hers, the one that's going to bring about the end of all things. She must be living the high life, no? What if your girl's gone native? And I mean, look at that bathtub. Okay, they're doing their bath time and stuff. And even though you can tell that they're obviously both naked in the bath, it's actually pretty tasteful. And they're just like having their girl time and talking about how Gigi met Rodin, who is the warlock guy, and like what he means from it, and like why she thinks she has to kill Buffy. And Faith is really trying to be like, are you sure he's not just like trying to trick you and gain? She said, what if he has a demonic cookbook and he's just trying to trick you into gathering enough Slayers to bake into a bloody pie? But she also mentions that she's had older guys in her life before, and it wasn't anything naughty, it was just that they used her to get what they wanted. I think she's obviously talking about the mayor. She's just telling Gigi she should really be careful to make sure it's good for her. And she's asking her not to go after Buffy. Okay, we're in here. Willow was beefing up some security stuff for Buffy, and they're just talking. And Buffy mentions, you know, obviously they're worried about like the Twilight military guys and things like that. And Willow's like, you know, being the good guys means we don't kill humans. And Buffy's like, no, not being bad is what makes us good guys. And then Willow's like, are you sure you're ready to potentially go all Slayer on humans for keeps? And Buffy says, I honestly don't know. We'll cross that bridge when... And she gets whooped somewhere else. Willow says, did I do that? They brought her to Gigi. Okay, so they are full on fighting. Obviously swapping retorts as well. Buffy realized she's British and things, and she's like, for the people who invented girl power, your sense of sorority sucks. But then Gigi, with her bloody nose and everything, is basically like flaunting the fact that she's killed other slayers. She literally said, I appreciate you putting up more of a fight than the last slayer I felled. Buffy is not so happy about that. She's like, you hurt innocent girls. And she grabs the sword, and then Faith comes in screaming Buffy. And she goes, Faith? And Gigi also goes, Faith? Oh. Faith is taking Buffy out the window, and they fall into the pool, it looks like. She said, please be the deep end, please be the deep end. Oh, that's shallow, of course. Oh, Buffy. She said, so you decided to start your own evil slayers club? She immediately jumps to Faith doing it, of course. And she said, I'm on your team. And Buffy's like, you're lying. Like, I understand why she would think that in the first place, but we've seen Faith grow, obviously. So the fact that she just jumps there. I do feel bad for Faith. Faith is one of my favorite characters too. But she's so upset about Buffy. She like almost drowns her and then lets her up and says, just shut up. She's trying to explain to her, obviously, like Giles put her up to it and things, and then Willow sucks Buffy back. Says it took her a while to get locked onto her signature. She accidentally teleported a Norwegian truck driver and 2 marmosets before she found her. But then Buffy, the first thing she says is, get me Giles. Gigi, not so happy. But this being here means it's the end of the issue. No future for you, part 4. And we got the mayor. Okay, looks like we might have a little flashback first. Okay, they just had like a little moment from the show when she's like in her pink dress. Can we even see it? Pink dress. And she's talking about how people, you know, thought he was taking advantage of her, and like she can understand why they feel like that, and he might have been a snake, but he wasn't a dog. And she said it's hard to look back at that time and feel anything but loved. So she knows that it probably wasn't the best, but her time with it, it was still the times that she felt the most loved. Okay. Roden really wants Gigi, Genevieve. He calls her Lady Genevieve, but she said Gigi. He really wants her to kill Faith. And you can obviously tell Gigi's very sad. She's like, I let you into my home and you backstabbed me. And then she said, you're not even English, are you? Where is that horrid accent from anyway? New York? And then Faith said, ouch, that hurts, and literally kicks her off the little area that they were on. Like, that's what it's gonna take for them to now fight, because I bet they're gonna fight. She said, for the record, I'm a Boston girl, you know, like the Tea Party. Sorry, another little funny thing. Giles is still having this guy try and lock into there, and he said, I'm sorry, but it's gonna take darker arts than mine to get you to the other side. And the phone says, Willow, mobile. And Giles says, speaking of which, WITCH. Okay, Buffy is on the other line of with Giles, and she said, you didn't even tell me that you were working with her. And he's like, just like, let me explain. Lives are at stake. And she's like, yeah, mine is at stake. They conjured me over there, and then Willow took me back. And he said, and you left Faith behind. Buffy, you have to put Willow on the line. I don't want you to be any part of this. And she is obviously stricken. She said, do what you can for him. And then she leaves. Okay, and then we're back into the fight with Faith and Gigi. I think Faith is projecting a little bit. She keeps saying, like, you know, questioning this magic guy, which is right. But she is just talking about, like, you know something is up because you have never deserved to be loved by anybody. And Gigi's like, what I deserve is everything that was squandered on unworthy tramps like you. Gigi's a little bit crazy. But she thinks when she kills Buffy, I think she said earlier, that her nightmares are going to end. And then Faith says, if you're sick of the bad dreams, then wake the fuck up. And she kicks her into an axe. And she immediately is like, oh shit, I didn't mean to do that. Roden comes in, is not going to heal Gigi. I don't even know if he could. But he says, why bother? My orders were to train the Slayer to end all Slayers. Genevieve here was just a dead end. You, on the other hand, are what I'm looking for. And then she said, not if you were the last warm body left. And he said, even though I could make Buffy disappear forever, Faith looks to consider it. He says he's been promised clemency in the purge as long as he takes care of Buffy. Gives her the book and she's like, thanks. But I ain't much of a reader. Ooh, love that. Okay, I'm loving this, obviously. He grabs her and he says, Slayers are supposed to die when they're young and fresh, and you're over the hill now. And then she gets here. He's like, why are you smiling? And we got Giles, or Ripper, coming in the back. Ooh, and Giles got the spell book from Faith. Like, she was like, here, and threw it. And he did a spell. And Roden said, did you really just try to use one of my own containment spells against me? I can break out of any mystical field ever. And Giles said, I know, that's why I put it inside you. Gross. Okay. He exploded. Yeah. Okay, then. I love this. Giles got her passport and was like, congratulations on a most honorable discharge. And she said, thanks, but I'm not ready to punch out just yet. She thinks there's going to be other Gigi's out there and she's going to stop them. Oh, she wants to help them walk back from the brink if they're going to be on that path. Okay. And Giles wants to join her as partners, not as her boss, because she even said, I don't want to take orders. He was thinking they could perform the peacekeeping missions that are ill-suited to others. And then he said, I want to be the steed to your peel. And she said, I hope that's not as gross as it sounds. I like the idea of them being partners. I don't think Buffy's going to take it very well. Yeah, he definitely said Buffy and him are not on speaking terms at the moment. Ooh, okay. I think we're near the end of this volume. After all that, we get this like helicopter, and this military lady said, Twilight, are you there? I humbly request your audience, and all that crap. The humbly request your audience was like in quotes, like it's something she has to say. I bear your mark. Now give me my damn audience. Okay. Okay. Interesting. Okay, so we're talking to Twilight. Twilight is talking to this lady. This lady says, you're not going to be walking on air when you hear what I have to say. Our man on the inside confirms that Summers is still alive and your goons failed. He said, Roden and Genevieve were not my minions. They were my targets. It's about manipulating our enemies into waging this ugly war for us, a tactic crucial for bringing the age of magic to a close. By pitting Watcher against Warlock and Slayer against Slayer, we have pushed even the victors to remove themselves from the chessboard. And she said, well, who cares about a couple of rooks when the queen is still in play? How can you see this as a victory when Buffy lives to fight another day? And he said, let her have the day. Night falls soon enough. And here's our first look at Twilight. He's masked. He's floating, or at least he was floating earlier. Like, weird and creepy. And it looks like we also now have a short story called Anywhere But Here in here as well. I think it's very similar to the last volume where we had like our main story arc and then there's a little bit extra. Okay, so this is, okay, so Anywhere But Here. As soon as I turned the page, I realized what was going on. This is their like game that they played in like, was it season 1 or season 2 of Buffy, where it's like, what would happen if you wanted to be anywhere but here? And somebody said Buffy Summers, and she said, it depends. If you're anyone other than Daniel Craig, then no, I've never heard of her. And he said, well, that works out for everyone then. So he's supposed to be Daniel Craig. They're at the beach. I think this is their like stuff. Hello.
Hi.
Come lay down. Okay, I'm gonna have to finish this up later. Okay, so obviously Presley came into bed in the middle of the night last night, and by middle of the night, it was like barely 11 o'clock. It was only like an hour into me actually sitting down and starting to read after Elliot had gone to bed. But granted, he did go to bed earlier, like he was asleep like that, compared to Elliot. So I did finish reading. I was on the last little story bit here, and I don't fully remember where we left off. The story is Anywhere But Here. like I said, I did finish reading it last night, and it does start off with Buffy and Willow basically playing the game Anywhere But Here that they had done in the Buffy TV show, and Buffy's one was basically just Daniel Craig on the beach, and Willow was like, you can definitely do better than that. They're literally like flying somewhere, and this does have a little bit of story in it. Like, it's not as much like the short story thing in the last volume where it was just about Buffy #3. This actually does have a little bit of like stuff going on. We get them going to this place that is like a cottage in the middle of nowhere, basically, and there's another girl there who is sort of like the watcher slash keeper of this cottage. She is in charge of like making sure everything is, I guess, stable, because the old god or whoever is in there it's very like wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. And so Willow does specify that like she didn't volunteer for this job. This girl is chosen to stay here isolated by herself and use, I guess, magic or something to sort of protect the time-space stuff. They do again play the Anywhere But Here. At one point Willow talks about, you know, it's too dangerous to ski down the crazy Alps until the morning because there's like a blizzard, so we have to stay here until morning. Television's Tina Fey. So like, again, they're sort of playing that every so often. But their main goal is to, I guess, go into this cottage. There's like this huge staircase down, down, down to go talk to this old god thing. We do get interspersed with Dawn and Xander a little bit. Dawn is still a giant, and Xander apparently was able to have the witches that they have in their like Slayer group magic her clothes bigger, so now she has some change of clothes type of thing, and they're just sort of bonding about that, talking about what happened. And again, I'm not going to go back and forth as much as they did because they did go back and forth, but basically Xander is able to have Dawn open up, and she talks about how everybody's blaming her boyfriend Kenny, who was the thrice wise, like she must have slept with him and that's why she's a giant. Well, she does reveal that at a party she actually slept with Kenny's roommate instead, and that's why this happened. So again, a little bit different than what she was telling Willow and things like that. Buffy has another Anywhere But Here thing where she's talking about Little Women Christian Bale and Reign of Fire Christian Bale, and Willow's like, see, that's better. I knew you could do it. But they also talk a little bit about Kennedy, which is intriguing because we haven't seen Kennedy at all in this recently, but she is technically Willow's girlfriend, and we've heard talk about her a little bit, but like she hasn't really been in the volume, either volume 1 or volume 2, and Willow says it's sort of complicated. I guess Kennedy is still her girlfriend. They said she is still significant because you don't play the Anywhere But Here game with people that are significant others. It's like a fantasy type of thing. But it was mentioned before that Kennedy died, but it was temporary. We don't know anything about that, really. So I'm still very curious because I have read these before, but it has been years and I don't remember everything. But at the same time, the way that they're mentioning it almost feels like we should have known something beforehand, but I did Google. There is no like separate Kennedy Willow storyline before season 8, so I guess this was just how much information we have gotten so far about it, but like, it's curious. The person slash monster that they're going to see is this thing here with a bunch of different screens, which is again weird. Buffy says that they're going there to see if they can get help because of the Twilight situation. He says that he knows what Twilight means, I guess. It's the end, of course, of the struggle of the Hellmouths, the final triumph of the base humans over the demons. That's your life's goal achieved, Slayer, the death of magic. And Willow does not look so happy about that. And the guy says, lies, lies, delusions, gross simplifications, these are what make mankind. No fault in it, your brains could not contain the horrible beauty of total awareness. You run from it as from a predator, you escape, even from each other. So again, he's sort of speaking in riddles a little bit. He's like, I want to show you things that are going on. He shows them Buffy and Slayer's stealing things, and I don't 100% know if that's what's happened or not, because like the way that they show it makes it sound very almost like premeditated in a way. But Willow's like, so this is the mysterious benefactor bankrolling the Slayer army. And then Buffy says, well, it's insured, it's a victimless crime. I don't know, it feels weird to like see her stealing stuff from a Swiss bank. But sure, whatever. And then Buffy's like, look, you also did a bad thing. And it's Willow with this like snake creature, very sensual. And I'm pretty sure we do get a little bit more information on that, but like in here, we don't really get a whole lot of more information. But instead of really being able to figure out what this like weird computer guy thing is talking about, and by computer, I mean like he has like the 4 monitors on there, the woman who's sort of in charge of watching the space does come down to check on what's happening. And Willow does say that she was never naughty here. She doesn't understand what's going on because like everything is like, again, wibbly wobbly timey wimey. This stuff might not have happened right away, or at least for Willow's. Buffy seems to acknowledge the like stealing thing. But the girl, Robin, who's the one in charge of like watching stuff, says, I didn't think he'd show you this. And then they see this thing, which is obviously Buffy being injured in some way. And she said, what happens to me here? And Robin says, betrayal, the closest and the most unexpected. And again, we don't really get much more about other stuff. Willow says that she won't betray her, but like, we don't really know everything else. They do talk about a little bit about Kennedy. Kennedy does show up. And she's basically like, why don't I ever go see Buffy anymore? Are you embarrassed about me? And Willow says, no, I'm not embarrassed, but I basically chose Buffy over Tara. The fact that Buffy died in season 5 and then Willow brought her back in season 6, that is what started the whole thing that led to Tara being shot. Because the whole thing that happened was with Warren. Warren was trying to get to Buffy, but if Buffy was dead, Buffy wouldn't have been on that timeline. She talks about how they could have literally moved on, taken Dawn and moved somewhere else, and like that never would have been a consideration. But instead, she chose Buffy, and that ended up inevitably choosing Buffy over Tara. And she doesn't want to choose Buffy over anybody that she loves ever again. So she's been trying to just keep Kennedy out of it, which I understand. Still curious about the Kennedy dying thing, who knows? But they go back into the thing, they're talking to this like creepy 4-headed computer demon thing again, and he's talking about like he welcomes this war. He can see every weakness that these people have. He's gonna tell all his brethren all the things, and Buffy's like, you know what? Too bad. I'm gonna kill you. So she does, and then they have to escape very quickly because the magic is going to explode. Robin contains it, so it is just there. And they're like, I'm so sorry that I, killed the guy and exploded your job and everything like that. And she said, you know what? It's fine. I'm grateful because now I can have some time off until I am reassigned. And that's really all that happened. So again, we got some more information. We had this like weird demon thing that apparently can see like everything. And we got some information about that. We got a little bit more information about like the Buffy Willow dynamic and the Tara / Kennedy dynamic. I really did like this volume. Again, I'm gonna give it 5 stars because again, the way that it was written, the way the characters are, you could hear them. I could hear them in my head as they were talking. Like everybody felt like who you expected it to be. Not that I should expect anything different from Brian K. Vaughan. You know what I mean? Like I have loved, I think everything that I've ever read that he has written. Whether that is a good thing or a bad thing because of the fact that like some of the stuff is devastating, but I love it. So I like this one a lot. It did jump back and forth between Buffy and Faith a lot, but I liked that we got to see her. We're definitely seeing a lot of different sides of different Slayers, especially ones that aren't connected to them, and I'm excited to read more. Today is Sunday. We do have 2 more volumes that I'm hoping to read today. We did just film a thing with the kids because they wanted to do a scavenger hunt. That'll probably be coming up after this video, actually. But that means now I need to like put the books away. That's why I'm sitting on the floor because like everything in my library has been moved so they could do the little scavenger hunt thing. And it's about lunchtime. So we're gonna eat lunch and then we're gonna come back and read more. I'm very, very excited. Especially because, like I said, I've read these. I think I've rated every single Buffy season 8 thing like 5 stars before, but it's been a while, so I really don't remember all the tiny little details, but I'm loving the characters, loving the humor. It definitely feels like it fits in the Buffy world, and so far, I'm happy. Okay, so it is officially after lunch, about 2 o'clock now. It's gonna be quiet time for the kids, which means they're reading or coloring or something by themselves, and we get to start volume 3. This is gonna be Wolves at the Gate. First thing we have on here, Dracula has shown up on our cover. I remember a little bit of him being in here, and I know we had that like short story in one of the like Tales of the Vampires where he was in it. I don't remember how much he actually shows up in here, but yeah, we're gonna jump right on into this. And this one is written by Drew Goddard, who is another like writer and things from Buffy. It looks like the whole volume is. So let's see. Oh, except for A Beautiful Sunset. It did say that there is A Beautiful Sunset script by Joss Whedon, and that's gonna be, I guess, our first story in here. We have like a girl playing baseball, softball, one of those. Once upon a time, I did something good. I didn't do it alone, of course, but that's the point. I found a way to share my power. Okay, Buffy is talking about stuff from her perspective, but we are seeing, it looks like, some of the Slayers activate. And it looks like this is like a security footage, but apparently these are some Slayers with guns. We've heard that a few times now, Slayers asking for guns. This one is Simone. Came up with the Chicago squad until Rona shipped her over to Andrew. Apparently there's one other Slayer that was originally Andrew's, but 3 other girls that they don't exactly know where they came from. They're saying if they are Slayers, they're not ones that they've known about. Okay, so apparently there's a vamp nest that Buffy needs to take out. She did mention her little jewel thief thing, saying that she thinks she's the reason that these girls are going on a spree. But I guess one of the bigger issues is the guns. They don't want people, especially the Twilight government people, to realize that Slayers now have guns and more advanced weaponry because they already don't like them and are trying to take them out. So I think we're going to get into that in a little bit, but there's a vamp nest that they need to take out. Xander said it's for Buffy's birthday, so I'm assuming she is around that time. I don't know exactly how old she would be now. 23, something like that. And he said that she should take a date because she asked if she needed a crew or just her, and she decided to take Satsu because they need to talk. She told Xander it was about more girly things. I'm pretty sure it's because she kissed her, obviously. Okay, so Buffy took Satsu with her. They jumped down from like this building and everything, and Buffy lands pretty cleanly. Satsu lands on her face. She says that you can either lead the crew or become a corpse, and there's a few things that Satsu needs to learn. She said number 2 is not landing on your face. Satsu, of course, is like, so did we skip number 1? Buffy says number 1 is that you are always in danger, and right now you're in terrible danger because you're in love with me. And she like kicks her into some vampires, and so they're fighting and trying to like talk about stuff. Satsu says stupid lip gloss. Buffy's like, it's not actually the lip gloss. I would have figured it out, and I'm sure other people have already. And so Satsu's like, are you kicking me out? Buffy says, no, I think it's the sweetest thing ever. And then there's a vampire that says, the sweetest thing will be your blood. And Buffy says, please, we're talking. And Satsu is like, please don't dismiss me as having a crush. And Buffy's like, no, obviously it's not a crush. You wouldn't have been able to wake me up from that curse thing if it wasn't true love. But I have been in love before, and I know how much it can hurt you. And it's because Buffy says that people are around her, especially people that love her, tend to die. She said maybe they go to a hell dimension or burn up, or they start letting vamps suck on them and they leave. They all leave, even my friends. Sooner or later, everybody realizes there's something wrong with me or around me, and so she's trying to protect her, it sounds like. Oh, but then Twilight has shown up, and he says, the chosen one, always in pain and always complaining. And they start to fight a little bit, but then they're going on a ride somewhere. Very curious. Okay, so they do fight a little bit, but then he leaves. He says, I'm not going to kill you now. My first gift is my last. I know that you meant well, but you've brought disaster, and it falls to me to avert it. I'm assuming this is related to the whole bringing a whole bunch of Slayers activated type of thing. And he's now like talking to, I guess, people, demons, and government people, saying however hapless she is about her personal life, this girl is always firmly believed that she is on the right side. And if there's one thing I've learned about the Slayer, starts to pull up his mask, and then he's just like, oh, I'm just itchy. They gotta tease us about who this actually is. And he says, sorry, itchy neck, where was I? And then we move into Satsu and Buffy very much bandaged up after that fight. Okay, we finished the end of issue 1 here. And basically, Xander's talking to Buffy about how she really made connection between all these girls. Because she's like, is it my fault that bad things are happening? Did I fail at what I'm doing? Like, should I not have done this? And he says that, no, you've made connection here. And she's like, well, why can't I feel it? And he said, maybe you don't get to. Maybe the leader, the girl who brings it all together, is the one that has to give it up. And she said, yeah, yay me. And then, of course, we're going to move on to the official Wolves at the Gate, part 1. It starts off with Xander looking through binoculars. He's like, we have wolves at the gate. Okay. Oh, and it looks like Renee is there. That's the Slayer person that they've been sort of flirting a little bit. And Buffy keeps telling him that he needs to ask her out. For everybody who has always wanted Buffy to be a little bit bi, usually in relation to like faith and things, in the Canon comic series, she does sleep with Satsu. Oh, and Willow is bringing Andrew. And as soon as she drops him off, she is kidnapped, it looks like, by someone who comes out of some smoke. We don't know anything else yet. Okay, Buffy and Satsu definitely had to have a conversation. Satsu's like, what are we going to do tomorrow? And Buffy's like, what do you mean? Satsu is like, well, I know you didn't just turn gay all of a sudden. And Buffy's like, how did you know? Could you tell that I wasn't doing the right thing? And she's like, no, everything was good. And Buffy agrees that, yeah, it's probably not going to go any further than this. So, a little bit of stuff in here, but not as much as people probably would want. No relationship stuff going on. And of course, as soon as they're like finishing up their conversation, Xander walks right in because him and Renee were out, you know, on lookout, and they saw wolves, and they're concerned about stuff. So he walks in, immediately smacks one hand over his good eye, and is like, oh, I didn't see anything. And then Renee walks in, and then Andrew walks in. And then Dawn peeks in through the window. They just cannot catch a break. Oh, and Willow just got like, fell through the ceiling and says, ow, like, obviously, yeah, that hurt. And Buffy's like, what is happening? Willow says, I think we're under attack, and why are you naked in bed with Satsu? Everybody knows. Buffy is like, where are the wolves? Send me somewhere where I can do some damage. And it looks like the wolves are Dracula-esque, because none of these people look like Dracula. But they all have that, like, very pale skin. Even the girl who, like, picked up Willow at that one point had the same sort of like very pale skin, darker hair. So they can turn into wolves or misty things as well. Okay, so we're having a lot of like action-y parts with not a lot of talking. They go in, these vampire people go in to get the scythe, and Buffy comes in and is like, I don't like to share. And they're like, just like pointing at the scythe, shrugging. One of them turns into a cat or a panther and then gets the scythe and starts to run away. And Buffy's like, yeah, that's new. Buffy said, a vampire punched me and then turned into fog. They're like, how are they even vampires? How does this work? They can turn into wolves and fog and panthers and bees. When's the last time we saw vampires turn into all these things? And then they just turn and stare at Xander. And he's like, why is everybody staring at me? Oh, yeah, Dracula. And Xander is obviously off to go see Dracula, brings Renee with him, and he's like, you just need to watch me. I'm not expecting anything, but like, in case I start acting weird. And she's like, what do you mean? He's like, well, when I get around him, I start acting weird. And they go and say hi to Dracula, and the first thing he basically says is master. Yeah, okay. Going to Wolves at the Gate Part 2. Okay, so second part of Wolves at the Gate starts with Dracula looking like a very old man and saying, I'm so alone. And this is very similar to how he looked in one of the short stories that we read in Tales. Because he looks like his Dracula self, but then sometimes he looks as an old man. And so he's like lamenting that he's so alone. He has a servant here, but like everything the servant is talking about, he doesn't want to do. And then he sees the helicopter out the window and he tells the servant to get his razor. So when he shaves, I guess he shaves, he then looks like his normal self. The hair is no longer long and white. It is still long because that's how he usually is, but it's still like that dark color now. And so he now looks like himself to meet Xander and Renee. And then pretty much after Xander and Renee show up at Dracula's, we get Andrew basically having a Dracula class with the Slayers. Okay. So in this thing, when Andrew is talking to the Slayers about Dracula, he's trying to tell them about like some of his powers and stuff. And they're like, we know who Dracula is. But somebody asks, is Xander still under his spell? And he said, it's hard to say for certain, but I think they're just fast friends. Obviously, it started in Sunnydale when Dracula came and he did put Xander sort of under a spell. But then he says that they've been exchanging letters and Xander actually went and lived with Dracula for a few months. And I'm pretty sure that was the story we had seen previously. So that makes sense. Oh, okay. He went to Transylvania right after Anya's death. He needed some guy time. Okay, and it looks like the vampires that stole the scythe have some base in like Japan, and the main one is going to be Toru, who they're looking for. Oh my goodness. Okay, they're having tea at Dracula's house, and Dracula's talking about how Xander looks like he's lost weight, and Xander's like, oh yeah, I've been working out. I'm so glad you could tell. And you look amazing too. And Dracula's like, oh, you're just saying that. And Xander's like, no, really, I'm not. And Renee is like face palming. She just gets like, oh my gosh, these guys, more and more. It's hilarious. Will you two knock it off? We have business to discuss. Yeah, she is like not having it with these boys. Oh, but also, yeah, Dracula calls her Amor, and both Xander and her are not so happy about that. Dracula needs to stop that shit. Okay, and Xander is letting Dracula know that there's vampires that can do the stuff that he does. He says, I think they stole your power. Dracula is saying, no, that's impossible. You must have been seeing things, or it was a spell or something. They're like, no, they can literally do what you do. Oh, okay. Dracula, very racist. So he eventually is like, it's impossible. I risked my very soul to get to these ancient magics to learn these powers. There's no way that these people could take my powers. And then he says, oh balls. These vampires of which you speak, they wouldn't happen to be Asians, would they? That's not what he said, but like Dracula, come on. So he does sort of know. Okay, apparently Dracula lost his powers, or the secrets behind his powers, at a poker game. Of course. He thinks they cheated because they had a witch as well, but like, apparently Dracula's coming with them, and he said, let's make one thing clear. I loathe Buffy Summers. Her whole army makes me want to retch, and I'd just as soon see them wiped off the map once and for all. However, nobody steals from Dracula. Okay, Buffy and pretty much all of her Slayers are going. They look like they're in some like huge military jet, but Willow is talking to Satsu about the whole thing. Satsu's like, did I take advantage of her? And she's like, no, I think there was some two-way advantage taking. But they both agree Buffy is not sapphic, a lesbian, that kind of thing. And then Willow asks, how is she like in bed? And Satsu's like, excuse me, I'm not gonna tell you that. Okay. And in the meantime, they have a different Slayer in Japan following these other vampires. I think her name is Aiko. And she's been following them, but she finds this like ring thing. It's like red, and they're able to use the scythe to like do something to her. And then they punch her and break her jaw, and it looks like bite her. But they said this was a successful beta test, and they want to take the technology global, and they have this like huge one. I don't know exactly what they did with it, but it was with a little red ring thing and the scythe. Okay, and then we are officially on to Wolves at the Gate Part 3. Okay, and apparently the vampires strung Aiko up and used her blood to write a message that says, welcome to Tokyo, for Buffy and the Slayers. Buffy takes her body back to, I guess, where all the Slayers are in Japan. There's like a temple or, you know, something that they're at. Okay, as they're discussing what to do, Dracula comes in because they're not too sure how to continue with stuff because they're fog. How are they supposed to catch them and contain them somewhere if they can turn into fog? Well, he mentions there's a containment spell and he'll teach Willow how to do it. But then he's like, I need to go get into my coffin because the sun's gonna come up, and they're like, it's 8 p.m. and he's like, oh, I can't figure out time zones. And Xander's like, it's been a long flight. He does not travel well. And of course, Dracula turns around, sees the body, and says, is anybody gonna finish eating this? I mean, I do usually appreciate the humor in Buffy. I don't think this volume has been as humorous as like the first two. It's not bad, but like that. Some of the humor is just a little bit more morbid in a way and not as like laugh out loud funny, because there have been some humorous parts in other volumes. I'm okay with this one so far. I don't know if I would necessarily say it's a whole 5 stars compared to the other ones. We still have some more to read, obviously. But also just like the storyline of it, like I'm curious, but I feel like we've moved away from the Twilight aspect a little bit, which I know is going to be a huge part. And I'm just curious how these Japanese vampires and the scythe and their technology are fitting into everything. Also, we haven't seen Amy and Warren since volume 1 either. It feels like they're introducing a lot of things that just haven't continued through the arc as much yet. We shall see. And then, like I was talking about with humor, I liked this one a little bit more. We're back with the Japanese vampires, and they're talking about their technology and how it's going to be up and running in about 12 hours. One of them is asking, like, where are we at on countermeasures? And the other guy says the robotics division is up and running, though I still contend they're wasting their time. And then the other one says, you have no sense of imagination, do you? And he says, I'm fairly certain it died with my soul. I liked that one. Oh, okay. They got a vampire, they baited him with Renee, and of course, as soon as he gets her, like, alone in the forest, Buffy and Xander and Willow are there. They are able to do a containment spell, and they said, it's really hard to hurt you guys because you're air, but one thing about air is it burns. So they pour gasoline on this guy, and he's like, I will tell you everything, do not burn me up. And she wants to know about her scythe and, like, what they're doing with it, and apparently Kumiko, which is the person who, like, got Willow at the very beginning, is not just a vampire, she's also a witch. She has a spell to reverse the scythe spell, make all the slayers human, and she has a lens that is going to amplify the spell. I think that means that's what that little thing was for that Aiko got. They must have changed her and made her not a slayer. And so, like, when one of the vampires punched her, he actually, like, broke her jaw, and he was like, that was unfortunate. Didn't really realize I was going to do that. And it's probably because she was turned into a human at that time before he punched her. So she was no longer a slayer, no longer had the strength and everything, and much easier to get a hold of her and kill her. Oh, and it's supposed to happen right before dawn. And he said, please, I told you everything, you have to let me go. And Buffy said, I never agreed to that. This is war. And she lights him up. Okay. Well, she is apparently going to war. Okay. Everybody is getting ready to go into battle, and we're seeing some of the, like, couples and things happening. And by that I mean, like, Buffy is asking Satsu to stay behind and watch all of the Tokyo slayers who are really messed up by Aiko dying. And Satsu says, I don't know if you're trying to protect me or avoid me, but that's not happening. I'm not staying behind because I'm your best fighter and I'm not listening to you. And she said, I will see you on the battlefield, ma'am. And then Buffy said, I can't believe I find it sexy when she calls me ma'am. Then we also have Xander and Renee, and Xander's, like, begging Renee to count this as their first date, because he says there's always, like, the bad jitters of first dates, and then, like, even if you have a good first date, you get to the end, and then you don't know if you should kiss them or not, because, like, what if you do go for a kiss and they don't want you to, and they'll slap you, and you look like you could slap really, really hard, or you don't go in for a kiss, but they wanted a kiss, and so he's just, like, rambling, and she's like, okay, first of all, we are not counting this as a first date, because we are not telling people that you dressed me up like a schoolgirl and had me be bait, and then we set a vampire on fire and got ready to go into battle with a whole bunch of other slayers and Dracula. And Dracula is there, obviously getting ready, and he's like, I resent that. I would never go on a date with you guys. But Renee does tell him, I will help you about that first date thing. And gives him his kiss now, so that he doesn't have to worry about that part when they eventually go on their first date. They're waiting to, like, go into battle, and they're trying to figure out how to stop the vampires. They're like, they still can turn into fog. Like, how are we supposed to fight them? And Buffy's like, the first thing that we need to do is get the scythe. That's the thing that matters, because once we have that, they can't really hurt us. Well, except for normal vampire, you know, biting and clawing and things. What we need is a really big distraction. And Willow brings in Dawn. Okay, I feel like I sort of remembered this from the first time. While everybody is distracted with Dawn being a giant Godzilla woman is what they call her, they go to find their scythe and they realize it's a projection, but they realize it too late. And as you can see, Renee has gotten skewered. I think I do remember Renee dying before that actual first date can happen. Oh, Wolves at the Gate conclusion. Okay, that was the end of that issue. Now we're going to the conclusion. Yeah, Xander, not so good. Okay. Okay, so obviously this is Renee's thoughts as she's dying. So Xander is with her and Dracula is saying, Slayer, you need to go get your witch. I need her. I can stop the vampires, but I need your witch. And Buffy says, I am not leaving Xander alone to go get Willow. And Dracula said, he is not alone. I do sort of like the bromance thing between Xander and Dracula, whatever that means. Okay, there is so much happening right now. Okay, so Buffy is going to go get Willow. Willow is currently fighting in midair with Kumiko, who is their witch vampire, and she says that, do you think you were Saga Vasuki's only student? Which I think we learn about a little bit later, but I don't know for sure. But she says that we speak the same language. Willow says, good, talk to me, and like does something where they can like see each other's memories or something. And we see the snake lady again. I don't know what's going on. Well, Willow is sort of out of it. Buffy is going to go get her, but they're literally in midair. So Buffy is like, pretend it's a diving board, pretend it's a diving board, pretend it's a diving board. And she like jumps, stabs a knife into Kumiko. She doesn't dust or anything, so I don't think it was like a stake. But then she is like with Willow, and Willow's not actually like conscious right now. So Buffy is with her and is like, wake up, wake up, wake up. Then down on the floor, there are vampires and slayers everywhere. And one of the slayers is saying, there's too many of them. I think we need to fall back. Dawn says, no, we're not doing that. Smushes one of the vampire panther guys under her foot. And sees the building that has the giant red thing on it and says, we're going to take that building. But then somebody else says, Dawn, look out. Dawn gets punched by a mechadon. The Japanese vampires built a mechadon. This is getting a little bit too crazy for me. And I know that's saying something. Yep. Okay. Okay, so they're trying to light up the thing that is going to help the scythe take down the slayers. Kumiko is out of business right now, so somebody else is doing it. And they said, I hear something. What's going on? And they're like, oh, it's just standard booting procedure. They're like, no, it sounds like screaming. It looks like Dracula bursts his way out of like the ground. Willow turned the sidewalk into water so that Willow and Buffy, can have somewhere safe to land. And as they're down there, they look up and they see Satsu grab the scythe, but it looks like she's like falling off the building a little bit. Willow, of course, is like, hey, isn't that your girlfriend? And Buffy's like, she's not my girlfriend. And of course, Willow and Buffy have to have like a weird sort of thing. Like, Willow's telling her to be careful with Satsu. Buffy's like, I know. And then Willow says, and just so you know, I never wanted to sleep with you either. Buffy's like, what are you talking about? Willow says, I'm saying it's a good thing you didn't try your little experiment on me because it wouldn't have worked, Summers. You're not even on my list. What list? There's a list? Yep, and you're not on it. Not my type. Oh yeah? Well then you're not on my list either. Good. I don't want to be on it. Like, what are they arguing about right now? And then Willow says, we should probably go catch Satsu now. And Buffy's like, yeah, I was thinking that. Okay, Willow got them, brought them back up. Buffy has her scythe. And then Dracula tells Willow, take my sword. It's one of the ancient relics bound with demon spirit like your scythe. Angle or reverse incantation of Augustine's curse through the portal. It will negate vampire abilities. And so she's like, well, why can't you do it? He's like, because I'm a vampire. Okay, but it looks like she is going to do it. And hopefully negate their things. Yeah, Buffy says scales are balanced, girls. They're vampires and we're vampire slayers. They are able to dust them again. And then we have Dawn fighting Mecha-Dawn, and Mecha-Dawn is saying, like, my name is Dawn. I am a teenage girl. I like blue jeans and irony. Andrew's telling her that based on the fact that it's a mecha thing, you should be able to just, like, sever its head, cut it off from the control center. And she's like, how do you know this? He said, I've been preparing for this my entire life. Grab its head and twist. And then Mecha-Dawn says, I cry a lot. I often let boys take advantage of my weak emotional states. And Dawn said, no, I do not, and rips its head off. Okay. We're back to fighting the vampires. There is just so much jumping around here. I feel like I've talked the entire volume. Buffy's fighting vampires, and he said, I bet you taste sweet. And Satsu, of course, says, you have no idea. Okay. And then Dracula gets his sword back, and he's fighting the main vampire guy. And the main vampire guy is saying, like, you're too old. You're just an ordinary vampire again, just like us. And he's like, my boy, I was never an ordinary vampire. Or did you forget who I used to be? And he's like cutting into this vampire as he's going on and on. I've killed more men than God's plagues combined. And that was before I started eating people for fun. The fields of Europe used to steam with the blood of my enemies. Trust me, the vampire is the least of your concerns. It's the old man you need to worry about. And then the guy's like, you should just finish me. And he said, no, that's not my place. And he lets Xander kill him, because that's the guy that killed Renee. And then the vampires start to run away. And Buffy says, chase them. No prisoners. Seal off the streets. Cut them down as they flee. Kill every single one of them. Nobody gets out of here alive. And then there's obviously Xander with some, at least 5 o'clock shadow, talking to Dracula. And basically saying, if you call me any of those stupid names, like manservant or anything else, I will kill you in your sleep. And then there, I think it's Buffy and Satsu talking, saying, I thought we'd act like nothing happened. I thought we'd wake up and everything would be fine, but everything's not fine. Satsu says, I don't think I can be around you right now, Buffy. Buffy says, I can change. I can be less enticing in a lesbian sense. Okay, we've basically finished. Satsu is deciding to stay in Japan instead of going back with Buffy because she needs her space. She says Buffy didn't hurt her or anything. It was one of the best nights of her life, but she knows they can't be together. And then we basically just have like a bunch of recapping here. Yes, that is Satsu and Buffy having one more night together. But it just says, we have a cold journey ahead of us. Find what warmth you can for now, and I'll stand watch alone. That was Dracula talking about sailing back, but you can see Willow is doing something with that snake lady. Again, we don't have the information on that yet. And then Xander is one of the ones standing alone. So that is the end of volume 3. I'm going to go with 4 stars on that. I can't remember what I rated it before, and I feel like most of the stuff that I've rated, I have given Buffy like 5 out of 5s. But this one jumped around a lot more. It was devastating with Renee. I did remember a little bit about that. Like, I knew Renee and Xander were not endgame or anything, but I think it was just a little bit not funny enough in the humor, which not all the Buffy and even the Angel stuff that we've been reading is. But the stuff that they tried to do with the humor just didn't quite land for me. And so because of that, I didn't like it as much. But also I feel like the actual story arc of this was almost like a detour because we were able to fully resolve the Scythe issues, at least as far as I know. Maybe somebody like Kumiko would come back in future issues. I can't remember. But like I said, Buffy stabbed her, but I don't think dusted her. I think they took care of the other vampires. So, like, she could have gotten away. But besides that, like, cool. Dracula was back. Did we need him? Not really. We got some information with, you know, Buffy and Satsu and things, but it just felt like we could have probably erased this whole volume and still been on track with our overarching, like, big storyline for season 8. Because literally, they have the Scythe back. Everything that the Japanese vampires were going for doesn't seem like it really mattered too much. It wasn't bad. I liked it well enough. The characters were fine. I didn't feel the same, like, ooh, that's their voices as much as, like, Volume 2. Volume 2 had a lot of really good character stuff with, like, Buffy and Giles and Faith, where I was like, that is those characters. Not that this didn't feel like the characters. It just felt a little bit like it didn't really matter as much. A detour, like I said. Again, not bad. I'm going to give it 4 stars. I'm curious. I can't remember what volume 4 is about. We'll have to see. Okay, it is after dinner time. We have to do bath time for the kids in about 30 minutes because we're trying to get back on schedule for school starting in about 2 weeks. They've been staying up a little bit too late at night during the summer, mostly because like the sun wasn't going down until like after 9 p.m. and so it was just so hard to get them in bed. Even with blackout curtains, they just weren't blackout enough. But now that the sun's going down a little bit earlier, it's slightly better. But so I don't think I'm gonna be able to finish all of this in one sitting. I will do as best as I can, and then we'll probably have to stop, get the kids to bed, and come back. But the last volume we are going to be reading today is volume number 4, which is Time of Your Life. It looks like we're moving back into Whedon, doing all of the writing, but we are switching artists. We had Jorge's Gene T. I'm so bad. Previously on all 3 of the first volumes, but now we have Carl Moline, although it does show that there is George's Gene T again on, it says after these messages we'll be right back. I think that's probably whatever short story is in this volume. So we did switch up the art style. Let's take a look and see. Okay, so far, not so bad. I mean, it's barely started. Very stylized, but very colorful. I think we're getting into the Frey stuff, which is why we definitely read all of Frey last time. Okay, let's get into this. We're starting with Time of Your Life, Part 1. Okay, I love that the fact that it says bad day, started out bad, stayed that way. That is how we opened Frey. Frey was talking about how she had a bad day and it stayed that way. And so just the callback to that is great. Not everybody probably read Frey before jumping into this, because I know I didn't the first time. Like I remember when we were reading Frey last time, completely new to me. But I do love that they had that callback. They're fighting for some reason. There are flying cars. We're in the future. Her bad day, starting with not chronologically, but in order of immediate importance. Who the hell is this person? Also, where am I? Where's everyone else? And seriously, what is up with Dawn? Okay, then we jump back into, here's Dawn being a giant and everything else we're gonna get to. Okay, they're talking about abandoning their Scottish base because of what happened in the last, I was gonna say issue. I don't think it's the last issue. The last volume where Willow had that sort of like brain connection thing with one of the vampires, and she said it was someone was using her to send her a message from elsewhere, and then Buffy said, and that someone wouldn't happen to be a really hot, even though she's kind of got a snake body demon lady by any chance. Obviously it is, but so they are thinking about switching bases. Okay, apparently the contact, who shall remain name and snake bodiless, told Willow that the scythe can be found in New York. Buffy is like, but we got it back already. So they're not entirely sure what this means, but Willow thinks they definitely need to go get it checked out. They interrupt their meeting a little bit quickly because something is going on with Dawn. And for some reason, she is now a centaur. Oh! And here is our return of Twilight, but also Amy and Warren. Like I mentioned before, we haven't seen them since volume 1. And it looks like they have some sort of like bomb rocket thing covered in, I'm guessing, some sort of magic symbols. Don't know what they're doing. Okay, so I've been reading a little bit more. Not a ton of stuff has gone on, but enough. So basically, Willow and Buffy are going to be flying to New York to figure out everything that's happening that way from the stuff that she was told. Xander is going to stay with Centaur Dawn and try and cheer her up a little bit. And so like when they get to New York, Kennedy is there, so she's finally back, but we also have Vi, who I think was Felicia Day's character in the TV show, and she's leading some New York Slayers, and so they're sort of going over this whole thing. Apparently the mystical stuff that's happening is like a temporal anomaly, so Willow is explaining it as having like, there's the past, and then there's like the present, and then there's the future, and something happened in a specific spot that has like these ripple effects. And so that's what I guess the mystical people that they have working on it are picking up. They know it's probably at a specific building, but they don't really know what else is happening yet. We jump back to Xander and Dawn. He's trying to make her feel better about stuff, puts his foot in his mouth, obviously. And then there's like a thing that comes and like blows up their Scottish place anyway. It's probably Warren's bomb, but like, I don't know how many people they left there when Buffy and Willow went. After that, we get thrown back over to New York where they're setting up for their temporal anomaly. They know the stuff that happened originally was in the future, but they're expecting something weird to happen because of the ripples. Buffy gets all dressed up, and then it ends up, I guess, getting a demon there. But then she looks like she is thrown back and gets punched, I'm assuming by Frey. And Frey says, "You think you can spin me with a half-coy glam of a slayer bin dust more than 2 sen. You're lower than a lurk," so it is definitely Frey. The way that she just said that whole little like sentence though is way more future talky than I remember Frey being in Frey, which is not necessarily a bad thing. They did have some different words, like obviously they don't have vampire, it's a lurk instead. And Buffy says, English? Like she needs it in English. And I know what she's saying, but they didn't have this sort of like excessive chopped off words that obviously you can tell what they mean, but at the same time. So yeah, let's continue. We have Time of Your Life Part 2. Ooh, I love the cover here has that guy that she was working for as well, the little like fish mermaid guy. I love it. Okay, we jump into Frey going after vampires with her sister Erin, which I love. They don't explain that it's her, but you can tell. She just has like the long blonde hair. They're on like this cycle. Erin helps Frey cut into this like van to take out the vamps, and obviously Frey is a little bit more like into it and impulsive than Erin is. And she's trying to figure out where Hearth is. She's like, "Where is he? You're gonna tell me where he is." And this vampire says that Hearth said a mad woman would save us. A dark-haired one, she's lived for centuries, speaks in riddles and strange voices. He calls her the Black Hope and says she has power greater even than his. That's all he really gives her, and so she does end up killing him because that's all she got. Erin's asking if there's anything to know, like what he was talking about. And it looks like they're going to be trying to figure it out with, I think it's like some of the Slayer books, like in that one short story that we saw, she found like all the Slayer books. Okay, we have Hearth coming up in just a second. Okay, so we have Hearth speaking to whoever this mad woman is. He says, "I remember fighting you. In the dream, you hurt me. Not just fighting, you're connected to someone I love. And that's the one, the Slayer of Slayers. That's who I am in the dream. That is who's coming." And she says, "Tonight, the princess leaves her kingdom for the forest of the now." So I'm assuming they have something to do with the temporal anomaly that's going on. She's saying there is nothing a Slayer cannot overcome. So he's asking, why would you call for another? She said, "Vampires gain strength from each other. Slayers ultimately don't. What happens in your time will cause your time to come. Do you see? Ripples, child. Everything is ripples." Okay, Willow and them figured out that Buffy got switched with the demon thing, and she says it's all her fault because they thought it was the temporal event was supposed to help them. And Willow says, so did I, which means this is my fault. Xander is breaking down into the base, and there are definitely some girls still alive. But lots and lots of green fire and things. Okay, stuff is definitely happening with this green fire. They are like snake-faced foot soldiers with like weapons and things, and they look like fire, but they obviously can do stuff because one of them just shot an arrow into Xander's arm. He was able to pull it out like it looks like an arrow, and then Dawn comes in and saves him, but in order to save him, he has to help like ride her out of the building because he can't move. And yeah, but then she says, "You're pulling my hair." And he said, "I'm holding your mane." She said, "My mane is my hair." And then we're back to Frey and Willow and stuff. It looks like we're going back and forth. I still don't 100% appreciate how crazy Frey's talk is in this, because she's talking to Erin again. It says, "The books talk about the place. The last girl came here and was transformed, they says. They say the madwoman's power reached through the ages and changed her. that sounds fine. And then it says, sounds hokum, but worth a peek. I find troubles, I'll pulse you. Like, I understand what they're trying to go for with this, but we just read an entire Frey series last weekend, and she didn't speak this crazy. It was more current day normal, minus a few other things. I just wish it was a little bit closer to that because we obviously have seen her before. Okay, so Willow is explaining that what must have happened is years from now, somebody sends this demon after whatever Slayer is there. But they also open a portal, demon thing gets sucked in, Slayer gets sucked out. They were played, basically. Willow says, we're all pasties, and Vi says, or possibly patsies. That would have been the right one. But so now they need to figure out how to get Buffy back. They don't really know what's happening, but they want her back. Buffy and Frey are actually fighting, and Buffy says, stop slaying me. Frey says, off of me, shifter. Buffy says, I'm not shifty. And then Frey says, that's spin, you think I'm a slack? And then Buffy says, you are talking crazy person talk. Put your words in word places, please. We both have scythes, we both have awesome kung fu moves. Turn-offs include smokers, insensitive man, and vampires. Are you with me? And then Frey says, that's not possible. Well, she says that's not possible. Buffy says, we're standing on a flying car. Poss is a pretty sketchy concept right now. And then Frey says, Buffy Summers. Buffy says, present. And she says, Buffy Summers is dead. And Buffy says, occasionally. Okay, Buffy and her are getting caught up a little bit, and she's trying to figure out what's going on. She wants to know if they can help her defeat Twilight and etc. But she's like, I want to know how you guys are organized. And Frey is like, guys? And Buffy's like, yeah, how many are you? How many Slayers do you have? And Frey says, 1. Half. Because her twin has the other half stuff, yeah. Buffy's like, so the half part? Frey explains, I have a twin, his name is Hearth. He was born with my memories, my connects to the Slayers. I got books, old Watcher's journals, but he knows more. And he was turned into a lurk, which is a vampire. We all know that. And Buffy's like, what's a lurk? Okay, they go to see Gunther because of course they do. Buffy is wearing a dress, and she called him a sleaze because he was literally swimming down there and he knows what her underwear looks like. Yeah. Okay, they're trying to figure out if Gunther knows anything. Apparently he has connections to like all the underground stuff, and they're looking for the Madwoman, and he does say that he's heard about a Madwoman, been alive since ancient times. And they're asking, does she at least have a name? We don't know. It gets cut over to Hearth instead. Let's see what they're up to. Okay, we're at the end of the issue. It is going to be time to give the kids a bath, so I'm just going to like leave you with this, and then I'll obviously be right back because I'm going to finish this, but I'm going to have to sit on this for a little bit. I did remember this was coming, but they're getting all of their stuff ready. It's Hearth and this Madwoman, and she does ask, why do you need to destroy your sister? And he says, she's the last thing I ever loved. We're connected. Her pain is my joy, my true love. And what in this world is stronger than love? And Dark Willow says, time, only time. She's our Madwoman. Okay, we're back. It's past 10 o'clock because again, it took Elliot forever to fall asleep. She fell asleep a little while ago, but like maybe 15 minutes. Girl. She is definitely going to be my night owl like when she grows up. She loves to sleep in, and she is always trying to stay up at night. Presley's the complete opposite. He wakes up before even me and Leon now, but like, okay. We're going to continue and finish this. I want to say we're almost halfway. We're on Time of Your Life part 3. I think there's probably like 4 parts, and then we have a short story at the end like we normally do. And we just had our big Dark Willow is back, and apparently has been for a while, and is in the future, in Frey's time. I don't know exactly how that works because like in the lore of Frey that we read last week, Buffy, I'm assuming, they never fully specify Buffy, but they do mention there was this big thing that happened where all of the magic went away. Buffy, or the last Slayer, whoever it was, took all the demons and monsters and magic away, and she apparently also went away, so there was no need for Slayers anymore. But now Willow is back. And like I've mentioned before, I've read this before. It has been years. I do not fully remember everything. I did remember the reveal of Dark Willow, and I think that is also sort of like right there too. But yeah, I don't remember exactly like how all of this stuff comes to be. Let's continue with part 3. We have books. It has nothing. Here's some of our covers and stuff too. Okay, Buffy is obviously stuck with Frey, and Frey is now living in this like library, basically. I mean, it's like a Watcher's library. It has a lot of books on Slayers and stuff. And Buffy mentions that, you know, she made this like army of Slayers. She turned all the potentials into Slayers, but apparently the stories, the books do not show that. They don't talk about that at all. And she's a little upset about how this is supposed to be the better world. The future is not exactly what she thinks it's going to be. Frey comes in and mentions that she got a hit and thinks that maybe they can go find some lurks a little bit higher up and, you know, stake that out sort of thing. But obviously in her weird future talk, that's a little bit silly. And Buffy says, does any part of that sentence involve me beating something up? And Frey says, I think so. And so Buffy says, include me in. So we're jumping around a lot in this book, which is not necessarily bad to read about, but it's much harder to keep you guys up to date because I feel like I have to talk quite often. I can't just like sit and read a big part and summarize because we're going back and forth. We literally jumped to Willow and Kennedy having an idea, but it was like one page and they didn't even tell us their idea. They just like talked until they had an idea. And then we are now following Dawn and Xander, who, you know, Xander was having to ride on Dawn's back in order to get away. And now they're in the forest and they've come across foresty creatures, spirits of the forest, I guess, that are like, you have to die now because you saw us. No humans are allowed to see this area. And Dawn's like, well, first of all, do I look human? But also, there's other things back there that are even worse than you guys. And they said, well, it is death to you. I mean, what was scarier than us? And so there was all that. And then now we're jumping back to Gunther, who is the merman guy from Frey's time, who apparently is now running into Hearth and all his vampires. But like, it's just like we jump around so much that it feels hard to like read and summarize because it feels like there's just so much stuff happening, which again is good to read about. It keeps me entertained. I want to know what's coming next. And they always like try to cut it right when you think you're gonna get a reveal. So yeah. Ooh, okay. Gunther was basically telling Hearth, like, don't be trying to, like, intimidate me. If you try and take me down and the glass breaks in here, I have enough generators that is going to pump in so much sunlight, all you vampires are going to be dust. And they're basically just having a little, like, word off threat thing. But then Hearth says, you have it spun, Gunther. We're one of a kind. After all, lurks don't breathe either. I mean, that is one way to do it. Oh, and then, like, immediately jumping into Buffy and Frey. And of course we have the running gag of Buffy not being able to drive, and even Frey says the same thing that Principal Snyder did in what, Band Candy? Okay, again, I don't remember all the details. Okay, Buffy and Frey are driving the car. Buffy's driving. She's not driving it very well. And they're supposed to be going into the upper level because apparently there are lurks getting up there, and that was like their go-to, let's go see what's happening sort of thing. And as they're driving past, they see this like attack of lurks on a med car, or maybe the lurks came out of a med car, but Frey mentions there's no med store in that plex, which means that like this is obviously weird that this ambulance thing is in there. And these lurks are starting to attack people. She wants to go and help. Buffy tells her no, because they need to look at the bigger picture. They're sending out hunting parties from somewhere. So if they want to stop it, if they want to stop Hearth, they need to know where they're coming from and not just stop all the little fights. Frey is like, you go if you want to, but I'm going to go stop them. She helps take down all the lurks that are there. There's a human girl there that got bitten, is very concerned about it. And she's like, no, you're fine. But she's not happy that Buffy was talking about the big picture. She said, that spins for govers, not slayers. Something skew with that girl. And then you hear from the side, anger won't help. You have to understand, Buffy. If you hate her, she'll be harder to kill. But does this mean this Dark Willow is some anybody that's already shown themselves to Frey, or is this the first time? I don't know. Okay. And Willow is now back with her sexy snake goddess lady thing. Let's see what they have to talk about, because right now they're both pretty much naked. Okay. Both Willow and this snake lady do not seem too happy with this situation. Willow is saying, you lied to me about what was going to happen. The other lady is saying, like, you should be able to get her back, but apparently if you can't, whatever. I told you what somebody else told me, someone I trusted. I think she's trying to say that she didn't mean to lie, potentially. And she's saying that Willow's being ungrateful for everything that she taught her. We don't really know what that means exactly, but Willow says she is grateful and she's sorry, but she needs Buffy back. The snake lady does say the rift is going to reopen that night, but Willow needs to figure out how to get Buffy back. And she's telling her, when the rift opens, reach across and bring her back, but do not look. Probably because Dark Willow's over there too, and you don't want to know all that kind of stuff. Okay, it does not look like Frey knows this mad woman, but she does say, you are the mad woman, aren't you? And she said, I suppose I am. Don't hold it against me, though. I'm fairly certain I've earned it. She thought she was going to be a lurk. She's not a lurk, but she's not quite human either. Not for some time now. Interesting. We're getting a little bit of like what's going on with Dark Willow. She's telling Frey not to trust Buffy. Frey says she's not going to kill any Slayer. And she said she won't show the same mercy because you both want different things. Frey says they both want to get rid of vampires or, you know, lurks. And Willow says the most important men in both your lives are lurks. You really think it's that simple? Okay, so Frey and Willow are still talking. Buffy crashed her car, but apparently can make her way back to where Frey's library thing is. And we are now meeting Aaron. I don't think Aaron knows about Buffy, so let's see. Okay, Buffy and Aaron are talking, just talking about like the different, you know, things about sisters and bonding and things. And then Aaron asks why she's a Slayer, and Buffy's like, why? What do you mean? And then Frey comes and like zaps her. Probably because of whatever Willow told her. Okay, that was the end of that issue. We are now moving Time of Your Life Part 4. I hate history. Not the subject. I always loved it in school. History is all romantic adventure stories until you live it. Until you live long enough to be a part of it. Oh yeah, this Willow apparently has been around for a long time. So let's see. Okay. Frey wants to know what the plan is because she's still not up for killing a Slayer no matter what she showed her. Okay, Dark Willow is saying that there is going to be an extraction attempt, which we know normal Willow, current Willow, is going to try and do. Aaron is saying, so we just send her back, so why is that going to be a problem? And then Frey said, because she'll end the world. She now knows what the future is, and so she'll try to change it, which means know them. And then Buffy wakes up and she said, oh my god, you went dark again. You are in such huge trouble for going dark. How could you even? And then she goes, is Kennedy okay? Willow says, it's been 200 years, Buffy. How do you think she is? I mean, I very much appreciate at least Buffy is asking. Buffy says, fair enough, let's move on. Why am I shackled? Why are you evil? And why isn't anyone on my side? That would be very good questions. Oh, Hearth just showed up at the top of this, like, place. This is Frey's place. It's, like, broken skylight at the top. But he's up there, and he's like, okay, Willow. None of them call her name, but you told me Buffy's coming here would cause our world to be, but you just told my sister the opposite. You've been spinning us all. And she said, well, yes, I am dark in that way. Okay, it's very intriguing. I love time travel stuff. I think we've mentioned this just like a little bit. Like some of my favorite things have some sort of like time travel in it. And so it's very interesting. Willow is saying, when you see what I have, you realize the most important thing about death isn't who dies, it's who kills them. Frey says, I'm not going to kill a Slayer. And then Willow says, if she gets back to the rooftop by midnight, you'll never have been. Frey says, you're lying. And then Willow says, I'm lying to someone. But would you bet your whole world that I'm lying to you? Hearth wants to kill everybody. And Willow says that it's not his night. And he said that her power is all but gone and you can't stop an army by yourself. Willow says, I don't plan to. And we have Gunther in a spaceship. I don't know. Okay, maybe not like a spaceship because they have hover cars and things. But he is in a ship thing. But He's like a merman. He's like in his own little, a fishbowl in a ship with guns and rockets and things. And he said, 3, you think 3 lurks can best me on my surf? You insult me. Like I sort of like him a little bit. I did not like him very much in Frey. He's getting better. Buffy is determined to get back to her world, but as soon as she does that, we're now back to the foresty creatures with Dawn and Xander. Wood creatures, the time of battle is upon us. Okay, it sounds like they're going to be trying to fight these green reptilian army thing that came in on that like magical bomb. Okay, they're in the middle of fighting. It didn't get too far because like Xander beheads one of these like green guys and his head goes back on. And he is saying like it would be a real speedy brawl if we could do some actual permanent damage. And then they actually ungreenify, which I'm assuming means maybe they can be killed now. Oh yeah, Wiccans and Slayers are here to F them up. Okay. Okay, we have jumped into Buffy trying to get up to wherever she needs to get extracted, but Frey is sort of in the way, and she says, I can't let you go. Buffy says, didn't you listen to Willow? It's who kills you. She's trying to pit us against each other. But Frey wants her to swear that her world will not disappear if Buffy leaves, and Buffy's like, you know I can't actually do that. And so, looks like we're going to be fighting. And then in the middle of that fight, we now jump to Amy and Warren and Twilight, and the very first thing they said, because they're watching everything happen in this like, I don't know, looking glass type of thing, Warren says, so we all get how this is Amy's fault. Warren's still not boyfriend material. They are literally just arguing about who did what and who killed more people and why things worked or didn't. And Twilight says, "Ah, young love, isn't it depressing?" And he's talking to somebody new who also has the Twilight symbol on him. And this guy says, I tell her I'm her inside man, her ever faithful. She's so stuck in the past, man. When we had our secret meeting in New York, she even got dressed up. This guy with the Twilight symbol is everybody's favorite. No, Riley. I did not remember that. Once I did see a little outline of the symbol and like the shirt, like here, I suspected. I did not remember that though. Interesting. Okay, Kennedy is getting Willow ready, blindfolded even, so she can't look across when she grabs Buffy. The portal is opening. Buffy breaks Frey's scythe and says, I'm sorry. Interesting. Yeah, Buffy says, I'm sorry, but then we hear about what? Failing, and it's Willow in the way. And Buffy says, you know I'll go through you. Willow says, and you know you'll have to. Buffy says, why? And Willow says, maybe I think the 20th century can soldier on just fine without you. Buffy says, I'm cute and blonde and popular, but I'm not stupid. You dragged me here and then told me exactly how to get out. Everything, every lie, to get us here. Why? What happened? Why does it have to be me? She says it's a long story, but she makes Buffy kill her. I mean, she's been alive for like 200 years now. Buffy obviously has a tear, and then you can see Willow come and grab her from the other side. But why? She gets her across, and Buffy says, I love you, Will. Yeah, I don't remember why. Okay, and then we get to see Frey again. Aaron comes over to her and says, Hearth ran off, but where did Buffy go? And Frey says, I failed again. Aaron says, Mel, she's gone, and we're not. And Frey doesn't know what that means. Aaron says it means it's a good day, but I wonder if that means we'll get to see Frey again. You know what I mean? Because that's the end of Time of Your Life, and now we have, after these messages, we'll be right back, our little short story. But yeah, I do wonder if we'll see her again, because there's obviously more to do with the Dark Willow stuff. I don't know. Okay, after these messages, we'll be right back. So it starts off by Buffy saying, the problem with saving the world is that you never get any sleep. And so apparently she's just been fighting. They're in this, I think it's a new place. It does not look the same as where they were before they got blown up, obviously, so it's after that. And Xander's trying to like wake her up, and she's like, just leave me alone. I don't care if it's about Dawn, as long as, like, you know, like she can change into a giant robot monkey, whatever. Just leave me alone and let me sleep in my bed. And he's like, but Buffy, that's my bed. And then it looks like we have a change in art style. I'm assuming dream stuff. And this is a very cute art style. Okay. And this is very, very cute. The art style is very cute. But also Buffy like wakes up and it's back in the day. Her mom is there and little Dawn is there, and Buffy even says, when were you ever this little? And Buffy is obviously current day Buffy, because she says a little bit of like, oh mom, you're alive, and her mom's like, don't be joking about stuff like that. And then she's also like, Dawn, you're not a giant or a centaur. And so now they're at school, and we have like Willow and Cordelia and everything. Even looks like maybe even Harmony. Cordelia is being a little bit mean to Willow, telling her she needs to change her hair, like get really short bangs or a perm or something. And Willow's like, would that be a good thing? And Cordelia says, no, but you'd get a clearer picture of exactly how hopeless you truly are. And then Buffy says, no biggie, Will. Maybe someday she'll be dead and you'll be a sorceress supreme. And Snyder's here, and he sounds just like Principal Snyder. And then Buffy says, look at it this way, Xander. Maybe someday Snyder will get eaten by a huge, ginormous snake. And you'll wear an eye patch and be in charge of lots of women. Buffy's really enjoying this whole little dream sequence thing. Like I said, Buffy is really enjoying this dream sequence. She does meet up with Giles, along with Willow and Xander, in like the graveyard, and Giles is talking about these disciples of Morgalla, and Buffy is really like focusing on some party that is supposed to happen tonight. But she's like, I'm basically in a freshman body, so I have all that sort of stuff, but I still have my Super Slayer brain. So she goes in and is like, dust, dust, dust to all the vampires. And she's like, perfect. We can now go to the party and not even have to worry about it. Giles is trying to be like, they were worshiping an image of a dragon. Buffy, Willow, Xander was like, I didn't see a dragon. Did you guys see a dragon? Didn't see a dragon. And Buffy is saying, I'm only trying to have a little bit of fun, Giles. Do you remember fun? It's something I used to have lots of before I became the chosen one, which, believe it or not, isn't all that it's cracked up to be. And someday there's going to be 1,800 Slayers working in 10 separate squads, and everybody calls me ma'am. And then she like leaves because she wants to go to the party, and Giles is like, ma'am? Angel has shown up. The way that they draw him is very intriguing. But so Buffy is basically, you know, talking to him. He's saying, oh, you know, like the normal sort of like, I heard that you just slayed these people. Like, this is supposed to be, I think, set during like season 1, like in her brain. And she even says this is before she knew he was Angelus. So just Angel. And then she's asking him, if you knew something about someone's past and future, would you tell them? He says, no, probably not. You can't change a person's past, and just by telling them, you'll change their future into who knows what. And then she has to go to her party. Okay, and Buffy is realizing that she might have missed something, and obviously we can tell she did, because Angel says, or had said, word under the street is that you went up against the 5 disciples. And she said, oops, there were only 3. So that was definitely not quite right. She wants to go party, but she is gonna go solve this. And she says, I hate when I'm right. I hate it worse when he's right. And yes, giant dragon now. Buffy's fighting the dragon, and she said, my shoe, you made me lose my shoe. And then it bonks Cordelia on the head. And Buffy wakes up, and everybody's there, and she's, you know, realizing that everybody's back to like normal. Xander has his eye patch. Dawn is a centaur. Willow is magic-y and gay. And she's like, I just had the strangest dream. We were back in high school, and you were there, and you were there, and you were there. And Willow says, and Toto too? And she said, I just kept thinking how nice things were back then, when it wasn't so complicated. And yet it was just the same as now, only different. I guess it doesn't really matter. We've got a world to save. Maybe Angel is right. You can't change a person's past. And just by telling them, you'll change their future into who knows what. But for one brief, shiny, it was great to go home again. That was cute. I liked that. Again, it didn't necessarily have anything to, I think, spur the next volumes forward. We will have to see. There are 4 volumes left in season 8, so we will finish this next weekend. but I do like that we had a little bit of like, she is conflicted about telling Willow. I think I'm gonna give this one 5 stars again. I really liked this one. Yeah, I guess volume 3 just again felt a little bit off the actual like road. You know, like if this is our road of season 8, volume 3 took a detour a little bit. But I really like this one. I like the character development. I like that we got to see Amy and Warren and Twilight a little bit more because I know that's sort of more of like the big bad type of thing. I loved seeing Frey more, and I'm very, very curious to see if we are going to get even more of that because obviously it feels very open-ended with her and Hearth and things. And now Buffy knows about it as well. I don't remember. I have read these. I swear I have, but I think I was looking online and on my Goodreads, and I actually have reviews. Short reviews, but reviews for this entire series. I haven't looked into season 9 yet, but for season 8 at least, I reviewed every single one of these. Now, I gave all of them 5 stars. I don't think that's necessarily true anymore, but I did review them, and it said that I last read these in 2016. So it's been 10 years since I read these. I don't remember much. So that does make sense. It's been 10 years. So I'm very much happy and excited to be continuing with these. And so we are done with that one today. Like I said, we will finish season 8 next time. I do have a checklist that I've been going through with all of my Buffy stuff, and I haven't really shown you guys, so I did want to put that in here today. This is what it's currently looking like. I have 2 check boxes. One is for if I own it, and one is for if I've read it. And by if I read it, I'm not counting rereads in like, oh, I've already read it, I'm gonna check it. No, I'm currently, if I've currently read it during this whole Bewitched by Buffy thing, because I want to see. So this is what we're currently looking like right now. Obviously a whole lot more things to go, but I'm very excited, and so that is going to be it for me today. If you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up to let me know. Subscribe to this channel if you'd like to see more videos. Bewitched by Buffy is coming out every Tuesday, but I do still post videos on Thursdays and Saturdays as well, so I will see you then. Bye!